Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 Links with Friends show. Today's February 7th, and we're doing government and security news.
And it's your last week for Devember of 2022.
Which is now officially Devember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really pushed it back this year, but we got to start judging soon, like this week. So
everybody, probably us included, is just like, why must we suffer with continued existence? Why?
The time, compression is just getting weirder by the week.
So the judging is happening Friday. Be ready.
Yeah. Any last minute submissions, get them in.
Yeah, there's a thread on the forum. You just need to post your game or your other thing. We've been lurking already. So, you can't show up and be like, I've got a new project. You have to have been participating up till now. But, submit it now. Submit yourself for judging.
With the appropriate hashtags.
Yeah. You know what else got submitted for judging? Chinese balloon.
This is a fun.
Suspected Chinese balloon.
I think we're 99% sure even at the time of recording.
Beijing now says that it did come from China, but they say it's not the Chinese government. I don't know if I believe that, but this is the hottest story of the day.
Suspected Chinese spy balloon found over northern U.S.
Montana, to be specific.
I thought somebody had shot it down, but no, they were just tracking it.
It's not particularly stealthy.
No, people were taking pictures and being like, what the heck is this? And you could see them on Twitter.
It certainly looks like a surveillance balloon.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
If it's not part of the government, then why hasn't some rando just shot it down?
Well, on our end, there's probably a risk of it falling on something, right?
That was the reason our government said for not shooting it down was they were afraid debris would...
It's a balloon. How much can it weigh?
I was thinking...
It's got other stuff on it.
Yeah, it's surveillance equipment. I was thinking one burst through the balloon with a Vulcan cannon. That wouldn't pop it, right? It would just probably cause it to start descending.
Yeah.
But it's still a risk. If you kill somebody with that, it's embarrassing.
I'm sure that they'll try to bring it down because they probably would like to see what's on it.
I would like to see if there's any Huawei equipment in that.
Yeah.
Because that's banned.
It's just TikTok dancers on there. So yeah, definitely a little spooky, especially because that's where we keep some of our military operations in that part of the country.
But it's probably been over more parts of the country, right? I wonder how long the U.S. or the government's been tracking it.
Some of the articles I was reading said that it had been over Alaska and parts of Canada as well. So,
well, that's probably the most exciting government news we have this week. Maybe we shouldn't have started with that.
By the time this comes out, who knows what fresh hells they'll see.
Could be great. Could be an army of balloons, just the sky full of Chinese balloons.
Oh.
Imagine that. And it turns out, what if the way I would like to see this wrapped up is that somehow this is part of a gender reveal strategy.
It's going to set fire to the whole Bob Marshall wilderness in Montana.
And we have a lot of antitrust and all that type of stuff happening. And the Biden administration seems to be finally ready to pull the trigger on some of the bigger cases. The big one being Google, and we have to guess eventually Apple.
Biden and man criticizes Apple and Google app stores. They were somewhat more critical of Apple with their lockdown walled garden thing. But the quote from this, none of the articles have the actual quote, which seems like somebody finally wheeled Biden in front of this. And he's like, wait, I remember the 80s because I'm fantastically old. And we had the computer revolution because people could run applications not from IBM on their IBM computers. And you mean to tell me that Apple phones can only run Apple software? What? I didn't realize that. And so that's sort of horrifying. But then, that's where we are with phones.
And they have been definitely preparing this for some time. Maybe that's a good sign because it's not just going to be another slap on the wrist. Maybe they're actually going to invest in this.
The DOJ suit to break up Google was years in the making for antitrust chief.
It said 15 years this guy's been gunning for them.
Well, where to start with this? Because the Microsoft antitrust thing is something that I followed very, very closely. And the DOJ was legit scared of Microsoft. Some of the stuff that came out of that, especially after the trial, and the prosecutors were more willing to talk about it after all that wrapped up. There's some good books out there on all that. But they were legit scared of Microsoft's lawyers. It was Microsoft has more money and lawyers than we do, the U.S. government. And so this whole like, oh, we spent 15 years putting this together. It's just, it didn't have the same pucker level, in my opinion.
We'll see. You think that guy, like when it finally happened, did he go into the bathroom at work and cry a little bit?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's finally over. And it's like, no, it's just beginning.
He had to shoo the interns out. It's my turn to cry.
And then he checked his Coinbase app, and it was like, there's the deposit from Apple.
Oh.
And the TikTok attack will never stop. I imagine the Chinese balloon will be a bit of a shot in the arm
Yeah.
for the anti-TikTok brigade.
Senator urges Apple and Google to remove TikTok from app stores.
Democratic senator. It seems like both sides, I think, are.
It's Wyden, right?
No.
Oh, no, Michael Bennett.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
So now we've got pushes from both sides of the aisle. Ban TikTok.
This is about 40% pandering.
Well,
We got good evidence that TikTok is run by the Chinese and spying. I mean, all the apps are spying.
Yeah.
Let's not single out TikTok for that. I don't know. Is it better? Would I rather have Xi Jinping reading my messages or Mark Zuckerberg?
We need some sort of system where Mark Zuckerberg and Xi Jinping are keeping an eye on one another. So then we might have the truth. It's like,
Let me modify that just a little bit, and let me replace keeping an eye on one another with fighting to the death for entertainment.
on the balloon. Above a volcano.
Be like Smash Brothers. You got to knock the other guy off.
all right, whichever leader it manages to win at Super Smash Brothers, that's whose operating system I'm going to install on my phone. That would be kind of entertaining.
Well, TikTok, Huawei, all the Chinese companies, it's bad for them. We've learned that they are suffering greatly from being cut off of everything, and it's only getting worse.
China stops granting export licenses. The U.S. stops granting export licenses for China's Huawei. So this is not what you might think initially. This is U.S. companies doing business with Huawei. Huawei still buying things from U.S. companies, but it has to be blessed by the U.S. government. Well, they will bless no more.
Up until this point, it was mostly just 5G and later type of stuff. But now they're saying no. So Huawei was still getting some of the old chips, and China's got a market for that lower price stuff, but not even that anymore. They're completely going to be cut off.
Oh no, where will they go to have all of their high-tech manufacturing done?
Well, there's a juicy little island.
I'm not feeling real positive about the state of the world right now.
Yeah, it's like, is there a betting pool that's going to pick the year? Because it's not, this is really bad. Like legit.
It does feel worse, but I'm also very young, so like maybe I don't have like a good
There's absolutely
calibration for that.
There's absolutely a betting pool for this. It's the Chinese bond market. You got the balls to be part of that? Actually, legally, you probably can't. But there's China ETFs that you can in this country for now.
There was one of the people that I know that lives in Taiwan was like, well, maybe this, many years ago, they were like, maybe this or that thing will happen and it'll make China more democratic, blah, blah, blah. And I wouldn't say that they were warm to the idea of assimilation of Taiwan, but they were the least militant about being anti that. And then they saw what happened in Hong Kong and they're like, oh, hell no.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Not even a little.
I was wrong. My bad. And I can't help but think that anybody that might have been a little soft on that is now like, oh, never mind.
Hong Kong and now Ukraine.
And the FAA, they had a bit of an embarrassment. We learned that it was because of a backup system that was improperly handled and probably by a third party. Very embarrassing. They have taken some steps.
US FAA adopts new safeguards after a computer outage halted flights. We chatted about that a couple of weeks ago, and now there's a new thing on the checklist, ready to be ignored.
If you shared that link with your friends, then you can follow up with this link. They'll love it.
Woo.
You'll make more friends. There should be an asterisk. It's like no friends guaranteed.
And AI is the hot new thing. It's funny, as I'm sorting, I've noticed that the AI section just gets bigger and bigger and bigger at the expense of the government section this week. I'm sure the governments love that. But here we have one that falls into both categories.
US and EU to launch first of its kind AI agreement. What are they agreeing to? The AI is going to be disruptive, mainly.
There's not a ton of details here, but basically, they're just like saying, hey, let's not fight each other with AI. Let's join our AI forces. They also want to do like they want to study ISP type stuff and social media type stuff, but they understand that now it is illegal to cross those streams. You can't actually move that data around. So they want a way for an AI to learn about us and then move the AI rather than the data and study the data over there. It seems like a bit of a workaround.
Yeah.
Not great.
You know what the workaround historically has been? It's just have our intelligence service do it, where they ignore the laws anyway.
They're good at that. And when it comes to cryptocurrency, the final step would be to be accepted into the central banking system. Now, I would argue that that would destroy everything that's good about cryptocurrency, because that is the evil empire. But it would also be a way for you, if you're the first to do it, it would be a way for you to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Unfortunately, the Fed is not looking for new applications.
Wyoming Crypto Bank's Federal Reserve application has been denied.
Apparently, Wyoming's trying to be very welcoming to crypto, which sort of surprised me because it's, Wyoming. But
The Fed didn't really have a lot of reasoning here other than it's just, this doesn't seem like sound money policy. And it's like, hello, 2008 housing crisis. What?
You guys have been printing money for 20 years. They did point out the old tired arguments, terrorism and money laundering.
HSBC, hello.
Yeah.
Money laundering, we eliminated money laundering. We don't want to reopen that door. And it's like, wait, we haven't.
And electric vehicles. We have a brutal winter has taught us some harsh lessons about electric vehicles. Maybe they have some limitations we didn't think about before, but that's not going to stop them from being crammed down your throat.
New Mexico law seeks a solar on every roof and an EV charger in every garage.
this is for new construction. Actually, I think the solar part actually makes a lot of sense considering where they are.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like,
Yeah.
this actually seems pretty good.
The EV charger maybe is like hit or miss because EV still seems like it's kind of developing, but solar on every roof when you live in a really sunny place, that seems to make sense to me.
It makes sense. That's something a consumer should be able to choose. The problem is you're picking a winner in an industry, which obviously one part of the industry supports one political party and the other side supports the other. What if you said you have to have a propane tank on your house? Think about it from that perspective. And we know that lobbying is maybe one of the biggest problems of our time, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It's got to be top 5, if not 10. But how do you stop it? Because
I could be paid to agree with you.
how do you stop it? Because they find really creative ways to work around it. Now we've got the PACs. The PACs do stuff. We're finding out from all of this Trump Biden stuff that it's just, there's so many layers.
It's pervasive.
What can you do? Well, maybe you can just rat them out.
EU lawmakers launch a tips hotline to catch big tech's quote-unquote shady lobbying.
They have a website. You can look at it in this article.
It's probably going to leak your data eventually and you'll be retaliated against.
But it says you don't have to give them your name or anything. But then, won't that result in a lot of false positives or bot submissions?
That'll result in a lot of industry, just like with the FCC and net neutrality. The industry will just go in there and stuff the ballot. Not a good deal. They also, over there in the EU, they want to get more revenue, and they want to get it from the big tech companies.
EU wants to hammer big tech and streamers with a 5G build bill. Streamers not like us, streamers like Netflix and other services that offer streaming
Big
video.
streamers, Disney Plus.
So this is crazy. This is more of the same, but this is a new twist on it. The funds collected from companies like Netflix would go into a large pot, which would then be used to help build 5G infrastructure. So it's not an internet slow lane. You don't, the companies don't pay ISPs directly. It's more like a blank media tax. Remember the blank media tax? It's like, oh, you're going to buy music CDRs. You pay a slightly higher tax that goes to the recording industry that they distribute to artists. After taking a quote unquote modest fee out of that because of piracy and that sort of things. This is the same kind of thing.
That's how we built the highways too. Like the interstate highway system would probably be a good kind of analog maybe.
You would tax, there's commercial vehicles still pay more tax than resident. Like you have to register a commercial vehicle and get a number put on the side of your vehicle in order to do that, but it's still sort of wrong.
Now, I don't know about in Europe. I imagine it's the same. But here, we've had various taxes on our cable television and internet service provider bills for quite some time.
Yeah.
All of that was also put into funds that were supposed to build infrastructure. How do you think we did?
We didn't do well.
I
Very
would
poorly.
say as close to zero as you could get without reaching zero.
It's very close to zero. Like we probably could, you know how some new words were invented? It's like, oh, we've got the Google because this number is so absurdly large. It's like that, but it's so absurdly small.
And the British are, they're an island nation. They're separated from the rest of the earth and
Recently freed, recently divorced. What do you call that?
Elegant description, just separated from the rest of the earth.
separated not just geographically, but also politically. And one of the problems that will create for you is that, you know, you're dependent on imports and they don't like that, but they don't seem to have a very unified plan on how to fix it.
Britain's semiconductor plan goes AWOL as the US and EU splash billions of dollars. I don't think things are really super amazing for the UK right now.
I don't think people are very happy with Sunak and his vision, especially when it comes to technology.
Oh, there it goes.
What's going on?
And, you know, the control of the narrative, the control of the truth, facts as they may be, is big with some governments. And they've stopped trying to pretend at this point. They've basically just told many of the big tech companies, it's like, yes, you will put us in control or you will be ejected.
Pakistan degrades a Wikipedia, warns of complete block over sacrilegious content.
Which, how would you ever defend against that? Because you know some Wikipedia editor with an axe to grind against religion is just going to go and make more of that just to piss you off.
I mean, it could even just be like, oh, that abruptly turned.
Laptop's installing an update.
Oh, uh-oh.
Did you unplug it or something? Because it was asleep.
No.
I don't know why it would have just randomly come on.
It started recording.
I heard us say some stuff and it was like, ooh, that might be important for me to know.
They're talking about the China balloon.
Maybe they know something.
Were you saying something, Chris?
I don't remember now. I was completely distracted by the laptop.
And disinformation, that's the big thing that governments will keep citing to control everything that's said. And up until this point, Japan's been kind of quiet on that front.
Japan plans a new government unit to deal with disinformation campaigns. It's like, we're at the mercy of foreign governments that are making up lies and terrible things.
To be fair, I'm sure there's a ton of Chinese disinformation.
Yeah,
in
that
Japan.
was mentioned in the article. Like, this was something they've been dealing with.
And Google Fi is Google's mobile service that you can get. It's actually just like many mobile resellers built on top of T-Mobile's network. And that means that
T-Mobile and U.S. Cellular.
And that means they were part of the big breach.
Google Fi says hackers accessed customers' information. But like all of these articles, they're worthless because Google doesn't say, yes, this is for sure part of the whole T-Mobile thing. But Google has been on the ball enough to detect SIM jacking and has taken countermeasures when that's detected. In one case cited in this article, in 2 hours, which is genuinely very impressive that Google's keeping that close of an eye on things.
You could still recover a lot of passwords and do a lot of damage in 2 hours.
Yeah.
SIM jacking is terrifying.
How long do you think it would take before Verizon noticed and did anything to do with recovering from SIM jacking, or for that matter, T-Mobile?
Those are two very different numbers.
Yeah.
Noticed and do anything about it.
Yeah. Someone notices it and is like, this is a problem for future me. And then just quietly.
Yeah, and noticing it is probably on the order of like 6 months. It's like, oh man, they got our database. They didn't break anything. I guess it wasn't serious. Moving right along.
And that is the attitude a lot of them take, right? It's like, well, it happened, but let's move on. But what happens is there's fallout, sometimes very long lasting. The half-life of a breach can be very long.
Like the LastPass breach or the GitHub breach. GitHub says hackers cloned code signing certificates in the breached repository. No. So code signing certificates basically is the chain of trust Hackers can now use that to create software that says, "Hey, I'm real software," in that chain of trust.
In that voice too. Hey, I'm real software.
Computers are always fooled by that voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when companies like Facebook, I guess one of the good antitrust arguments is when you get to that size, you've got a lot of different teams and they're not necessarily communicating that well. Remember we learned that inside Facebook, a lot of them just wouldn't share information.
Yeah.
It was kind of cutthroat.
Yeah, they're competitive.
And when that happens, but Facebook themselves, they want everything to be unified, right? And they might do it poorly.
Hacker finds bug that allowed anyone to bypass Facebook's two-factor authentication. What was the bug? You could try an unlimited number of times for your two-factor code. So
this was a meta tool. So let's say that you have both a Facebook and an Instagram account, which is what they want, but you want to manage everything all in one place. This gave you the opportunity to do that. What it did not do was limit the number of SMS code attempts. So they could brute force your SMS code, recovery code.
fabulous.
Seems like a basic one. JD Sports, I'm imagining, is European. Have you ever heard of them?
I've never heard of that.
Some sort of sporting goods retailer. Well, I bet you can guess what they're in trouble for since we're in this section.
JD Sports admits intruder accessed 10 million customers' data. 10 million. Woo. There's no payment data, don't worry. But you really should be, quote unquote, vigilant about scams. Oh, very European of you to say.
Browser's struggling today.
Yeah, it really is.
And last week we talked about KeePass and their little faux pas, as is often the case.
LastPass. This week is KeePass.
Oh, the KeePass was a different one, but it happened previously.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't last week, but sometime in the past we talked about this. And this comes up often as like, well, yeah, there was a breach, but it wasn't like you're describing.
KeePass disputes vulnerability allowing a stealthy password theft. So they're not wrong. I get what they're describing here. So KeePass is a program you run and it keeps your stuff in an encrypted file. Okay, cool. If you are on a computer that's compromised, then a program could modify the KeePass file, even though it's not necessarily able to modify the KeePass program. Like an administrator has to install the KeePass program in a program files folder, but your user has permission to your database file. But it's possible to craft some stuff on the system to basically look over the person's shoulder and then access the password file once it's been unlocked. And so the KeePass people are saying, well, if the system is already that compromised, chances are your database file is already going to be compromised anyway, so why do we need to worry about it?
It is pretty widely accepted that once physical access is breached, then all of the exploits are moot because they can do what they want.
This seems like an argument about semantics. It's like the computer hasn't been fully breached. The computer's been like normal user level access, but not administrator access. And so is it possible to exfiltrate your passwords with normal access as opposed to administrator access? And the answer is yes. But that's a type of vulnerability that exists in tons of software that's very difficult to mitigate against once you've run a bad program.
But it gives you a great opportunity to run a headline that most people won't read the article, and they'll be like, oh, KeePass is still good.
Or KeePass, well, like, oh, yeah, it's like,
It wasn't their fault.
yeah. Well, I mean, so you could make the same argument about SSH keys. It's like, oh, no, someone's stolen my SSH key. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you had a passphrase on your SSH key, then that's protected, unless you're compromised in such a way that they were watching you enter your passphrase.
Over in Russia, they've been hacked quite a bit. Seems like the world, for some reason, is targeting them. I can't imagine why. And Yandex is basically the Russian Google, and they got hacked. Now, the interesting thing that we learned here is probably not exactly the same secrets, but we've always wondered, how does Google do it? How does Baidu do it? What is the algorithm measuring to do my SEO? And this leak has given us so much information.
Massive Yandex code leak reveals Russian search engines ranking factors. This isn't the first time this code base has been for sale. It was originally some hacker former employee, was offering to sell it for $28,000. It managed not to leak out, but boom, there it is.
So you got some bullets that are going to tell you, if you want to game Yandex, here's how. Hosted on reliable servers. That doesn't seem like a good way to do that. Seems like that's designed just to keep those in power in power. And we've learned a lot that Amazon, Facebook, all the big tech companies, they see the next big horizon, I think, as healthcare.
Yes.
Once you get the healthcare data, imagine what you can do with the advertising profile.
Everyone has to have healthcare, so it's a captive market.
I have noticed that I get a lot more ads for Beyond Meat and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's so disgusting.
And there's some bad news about those that we'll talk about later in the program.
Foreshadowing.
You might be thinking, how does this happen? Shouldn't we have HIPAA laws, right? We have safeguards against that. How can this be?
The New York Times headline is GoodRx leaked user health data to Facebook and Google, the F.T.C. says. The actual factually correct headline is GoodRx deliberately set up and sold user health data to Facebook and Google, the F.T.C. says.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Health apps. I don't know how long.
Trust them.
I don't know how long we can reel it, because
You can't trust any app.
I
app.
had to do a minor surgery recently, but very minor. And they were like, "Yeah, just you gotta get the app." And then I was like, "No, I'm not doing that." She was like, "Well, I guess you can fill out this paper." But how long am I going to be able to say no to that?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's my aunt and uncle. I remember they asked me. This was like a couple of years ago. They were like, "Can you help us with something for our health insurance? Like, we get a huge discount if we use their like check-in thing for our health." And so like now they have to do that like once a week to check in. Like I guess they're not smoking and they're exercising and like it's wild.
But that's just all self-reporting.
Yeah.
But I bet if you went to an emergency room and they looked at your lungs and they were like, "Oh, this is a heavy smoker," the insurance company would be like, not us.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We're not responsible for that. You lied."
Yeah.
Health apps, avoid them at all costs. And should you avoid Anker products? My God, Anker was the shining light in the Amazon charging products.
Yeah, they make great chargers. I like their chargers a lot.
And cables, generally been happy with their cables, generally.
But I guess they just couldn't help but putting one foot in the dark side.
Anker finally comes clean about its Eufy security cameras. Why? Because there's so much money to be made off of consumer habits. You know, ISPs are giving away not entirely unreasonable like Wi-Fi mesh systems now because, oh boy, access to that consumer data and being able to see inside the network behind the NAT firewall. It turns out you could give customers thousands of dollars of wireless gear completely for free and it will totally subsidize itself. You just weren't exploiting them hard enough.
So The Verge has published all of their correspondence with Anker and Anker's response, and they only responded because The Verge was like, if you don't say something, we're going to run the story as is, and here's the story. But what they said, it's pretty shallow.
Yeah, it's PR speak. They're trying to...
Did Anker get acquired by venture capital or private equity partners or something? Because that's what happened with LastPass.
That'll be sad.
That's the thing that you have to, like, you in the know that watch the Level 1 news, that's the dark portent you need to watch is, like, acquired by private equity partners. Because things
and
get bad.
it's going to crap. Yeah.
And this is a fun one, although this is probably just like maybe explore this on your own, more type stuff. This gives a great visual overview of a malware attack. Like they go through it in, you know, the full detail. It's really cool.
Technical analysis, the Black Basta malware overview. So that's the name of and this is from Quadrant Security. And they really have done a nice job writing this up.
Threat mitigated.
Yeah, so that's some heavy red there.
The threat was mitigated after they unplugged the servers. So it wasn't like, look, our software did this amazing thing. It's like it went as catastrophically wrong as you can imagine.
But they detected it.
Yeah. But, well, they were kind of late to detect it. But yeah.
Now, we already talked about this one, and I don't think anybody expected this not to happen, but it is official, and it's worth mentioning again.
We joked about this.
Because when it comes to, like losing data, if you're a giant company and you lose data, we talk about the smack on the wrist. If you fine Google $16 million, that means nothing to Google. But how could you possibly go any easier on them? Well, the Canadians have found a way.
Tim Hortons officially settles its data breach lawsuit with free food.
This was right on the edge of going into nonsense for me.
How much is your privacy worth with Tim Hortons just flagrantly selling your data? It turns out it's less than a small latte and 3 donut holes.
It's
In these inflationary times, maybe that's a lot.
well, it's I don't. What's the Canadian dollar versus the U.S. dollar right now? Because this is about.
It's not fabulous.
It's like maybe 10 to 12 Canadian dollars, but it's not even that. It's not like you could go into a Tim Hortons, because Tim Hortons is kind of like a convenience store, right?
From what I understand, yeah.
So you can't go into a Tim Hortons and be like, give me $12 worth of AA batteries. Let me get something useful out of this. No, you get one drink up to 6 something.
Yeah.
And one snack up to $3.
A small latte and 3 donut holes.
Is a small latte $6 these days?
Yeah. In Canadian pesos, it is.
Oh, actually a little bit less for the treat. A maximum of $2.39 plus tax for baked good and $6.19 for a hot beverage.
How did they come up with those numbers?
They figured out the minimum that they could do and they think people would tolerate.
Wow.
These go into your Tim Horton app. Yes, you're going to have the Tim Horton app.
So they can lose your stuff again.
They data breached you, and now they're requiring you to use the app to get the reward for the data breach. It's just...
They're requiring you to use the app that was the data breach.
I imagine, like Tim Cook reading that headline and just having to put the paper down. It's like, my God, what a stroke of genius.
He's trying to get whoever negotiated that deal to come to Apple.
Is Tim Horton alive? Probably doesn't own it anymore if he does, right?
They're not taking calls because they're going to go work on the Google antitrust case. It's like, well, you are guilty of antitrust, but the remedy is everybody gets 100 gigabytes of free Google storage. Upload your documents, please, so we can do analytics on them.
You have to register with this app and check in. You have to install the software on your PC and lets us scan it, just to be sure. And pig butchering. Have you guys heard of that concept before?
No.
This is a new kind of scam. In most cases, they're trying to get a one-time payment out of you. They're trying to get that Apple gift card, and then they're going to ghost you. But in pig butchering, it's a much longer con.
Pig butchering scam apps sneak into Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store. Online confidence scams. The appearance is everything, and app stores cannot help with that.
So in this scam, you get an initial deposit, and then you start giving them returns. And you're like, oh, hey, do you want to withdraw a little bit of your profit here? And you let them take it, and you get them hooked. And that's when you hit them with, oh, no, there's a problem with your account. We're going to need you to deposit more to cover something. And then that doesn't work, and they're like, all right, well, we just need you to deposit a little bit more. But it's good because you still have profits. You want to get those. And the pig keeps paying into it until they're dead.
Or until they... Now, what was it that we're going to learn later in the program about Tim Cook saying, no, we need that 30% to keep scams out of the App Store?
His argument's probably like, well, let's make it 60 because it's obviously harder than you said. Yeah. And Microsoft has, in the past, been very anti-Linux, anti-open source, but it seems more and more that they're accepting the fact that they're going to have to live together with the Linux platform.
Microsoft upgrades its Defender to lock down Linux gear for its own good. Ballmer thought the Linux kernel, it was really the license, was cancer, but Nadella may disagree. Well, turns out Linux is used in a lot of Microsoft Azure infrastructure. Microsoft is finding a way to get not only get along with Linux, but also leverage Linux to not reinvent the wheel. Like finally somebody inside Microsoft was looking at Linux and saying, gosh, this is actually really pretty good. We should use it and not reinvent the wheel because nobody's going to use our stuff anyway. But the places where you can use Microsoft stuff, things like SQL Server and stuff in the operating system and blah, 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 that makes sense in a cloud standpoint. So Microsoft having to use their own products to power the cloud, even though they don't pay licensing to themselves, they said, wow, Linux is pretty good. We should probably get along with that. And thus...
How can we ruin this?
Yeah, well...
That's coming.
Defender, this is pretty good because it will detect malware and that sort of thing. But I would really like somebody to do a deep analysis on how Defender does its thing on Linux to find out if it's something stupid, like just rapid hash comparisons, or if it actually is a reasonable security product.
And this sounds like a really good headline. Sounds like a kind of a feel-good thing that Google is doing. But I would challenge you to look at this through the lens of record layoffs. Because maybe you don't have people to do this anymore, and this is a much cheaper way to do it.
Google expands open source bounties. Will soon support JavaScript fuzzing too.
We won't have to pay for QC anymore. We can just outsource all of it.
They're going to pay, but it's more like a lottery system.
Yeah. It's so it's going from 20 grand to 30 grand, but if one employee got 3 of those, 4 of those a year, you're still going to save money.
What did your grandpa do for a living, little Timmy? It's like, oh, he was a bug bounty hunter for Google until they stopped paying.
It wasn't much, but it was honest work.
There's one of those webcomics that's, how do you tell the difference between a real job and a BS job? And it's like, you can describe your job in 3 words. And it's like, oh, I use new analytics for, blah, blah. It's like, that's BS. And it's like, I'm a content marketer for, it's like, no, that's BS. It's like, I catch fish. That's a real job right there.
I saw another great comic where a guy was like, it's a 4-panel. And he's like, well, that's weird. The accounting department is asking me for my password and it's coming from this weird domain. I should probably alert somebody about this. And then the last panel is like, oh, wait, I don't care about this company. Click. And that's how phishing happens.
Got him.
Lord.
36 minutes. I expected this one to be short, but the business section this week is it's quite large.
Engagement challenge. We're going to need you to post a list of your company's employees and their social security numbers in the. Don't do that.
Please don't do that.
That would be
Don't
worse.
get our channel shut down.
That'd be worse for us than it would be for you.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't say that out there.
Anyway, chat. We will see you then. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Links with Friends. Today is February 8th, and we're doing business and social stories.
The business section should be renamed to the collapse section.
It really is.
Well, we'll start with collapse, and it is the largest subcategory, and it just keeps getting bigger week after week. Collapse and AI. I wonder if those two things have anything in common.
No, they're not really.
I think it's definitely these employees that are leaving these companies might get replaced by AI.
PayPal to lay off 2,000 employees in coming weeks, about 7% of its workforce.
Yikes.
I've joined a whole host of other companies that are doing that. They didn't really indicate where those employees would be working, just that it's general downsizing.
General downsizing is the theme of the week.
Software company HubSpot cuts 500 jobs, which is really sad because they gave people sort of fake certificates in the beginning.
That was Snap, I think.
Yeah,
that
that
was
was Snap, yeah.
Oh,
this is
could
the
be
one.
Nonsense.
This is the one that we were talking about earlier.
But this is not a tech company, but it's sort of been lumped in
Yeah.
with the tech world for whatever. It's a biotech, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So it always gets counted.
Impossible Foods planning to lay off 20% of its staff because a lot of the people in the technical industry have modified diets for one reason or another. Impossible Foods make plant-based meat substitute products, which are
No,
kind of artificial. Like processed foods are sort of bad.
I was going to say you are now a consumer
Yeah.
of artificial meats, and you've ranked them low.
Yeah, I would much rather have. I miss meat, but I don't. I would just have.
Beans or rice or
Yeah.
lentils, yeah.
I mean, there's a 3-bean chili that I can make, and that poured over rice is a meal that I'm not tired of yet.
Tomato sauce, you're fine with that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's vegetarian.
That opens up a lot of options for you.
Wheat noodles are also healthy for you. Like wheat noodles, like I could have non-wheat noodles probably, but you can't go. It would be bad to go overboard on noodles just for a lot of reasons.
That's true of everybody. I think.
Yeah, but wheat noodles are good. And it's like, oh, wheat noodles don't taste as good. Well,
Are you talking about like the whole wheat?
yeah,
Yeah, I always like the
Yeah,
whole wheat.
I was sitting here thinking, like, what's a non-wheat noodle?
Yeah, there's like the regular noodles and there's the whole wheat, and those are usually darker.
You ever see I can't remember what the name of it is, but there's a Japanese thing where it's a translucent noodle shaped
Glass
plant
noodle?
thing.
rice
Oh.
noodles.
No, it's not rice. And they're like, oh, this will totally replace, wheat entirely. And I got some of those. Those are absolutely repulsive.
What'd you put on 'em?
Texture, taste. I use them like spaghetti.
Rice noodles are good.
Anyway, they point out in this article, it's like, yeah, it's weird because the price of beef is skyrocketing, and yet people still won't buy our slurry.
Who will take care of the impossible cows now? All those impossible farmers have been laid off.
And it really is just copy paste.
The impossible cow is the Santa cow, the
Yeah.
original impossible cow.
It's just the percentage that changes in these headlines.
Philips got 13% of jobs in safety and profitability drive. This is the Philips medical division, which is kind of surprising because that was one of the industries that didn't seem to really care about anything.
Also, safety. That's a weird spin to put on it. It's like, oh, it's so unsafe. We got too many employees. It's not safe. We got to get rid of
It's
someone.
like a fire code thing that they brought everyone back to work, and it's like, ooh, there are too many people in this office.
And the numbers, I mean, 13% might not sound like a lot, but some of these companies are huge. And still, if you're one of the 13%, it hurts pretty bad. But some of the numbers are very large percentages.
Cash-strapped EV startup Arrival is laying off half its workforce.
I don't remember this one.
That's a UK company.
Yeah.
You don't remember them because they've never done anything. It's these EV companies that don't
Pop
ever
up,
produce anything. They get funding and then they just quietly fail. I don't know what kind of racket that is. That's ridiculous. And here's one that you don't see very often. Usually when the cuts come along, you cut from the bottom. You shave off, you take a cheese grater and just run it along the bottom of your corporation. But Intel is in such a bad place that they have to do this.
Intel slashing CEO and managers' pay in a bid to preserve cash and also their dividend. So Pat Gelsinger gets a 25% cut, managers and mid-level folks about a 15% cut, and general workforce 5% cut. There are also other benefits that have been cut, like 401k matching and a whole bunch of other things. So it really does seem like a portent of dark times for Intel, but they're also cutting it's weird. They did a price hike of the 12th gen CPUs, and now they're doing a cut of the 12th gen CPU pricing, like 15 or 20%, and they still are going to do their dividend. It doesn't okay, just don't do the dividend, and then
Oh, that hurts us now.
No, line must always go up.
That immediately hurts the stock price.
line no go up.
Yeah, that's exactly how they think.
And like many of the other companies we talked about last week, after the big cut headline comes the revelation that entire pieces of the company, like entire teams, in one fell swoop are just erased.
Intel sunsets its network switch biz. It's killed RISC-V Pathfinder and a bunch of other things. Now, they did clarify, that's what the updated is here, that Intel Foundry still plans to produce silicon for customers like RISC-V. It's just that the RISC-V Pathfinder internally, where it's like, hey, Intel might be making some RISC-V IP, that's gone. And also the Intel network switch business is really weird. It's in one of those superpositions where when you ask about specific networking products from Intel that look pretty good, Intel's like, that might not be dead. But then it's like, well, you're the people that were working on it, they've been reassigned. And the reassignment could include not working here anymore.
They've been reassigned to another company. Now, these layoffs, generally, because we've entered into a new world where, and I appreciate this, we don't do a lot of phone conversations.
No.
Most of your communication comes from some other type of deal, usually text. But when it comes to your losing your job, is that acceptable?
Layoffs by email show what employers really think of their workers. Or Elon Musk did it first. Alternate headline.
And if you want a great example of that,
Well, this again almost made nonsense for me because it's so awful.
it is someone who is not good at communicating via email. An excellent case study.
PagerDuty CEO quotes Martin Luther King Jr. in the worst layoff email ever.
Happy Black History Month. You're getting laid off.
So the quote was something about like
Leadership. She's literally complimenting herself while
Right.
she lays off her employees.
the measure of a leader is not during the good times, it's during the hard times. And I guess we read into that she's doing really good.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Ugh. How do you have a moment where you're rereading that email and you're like, yeah, this is really going to make them feel good about losing their job right after Christmas?
The third edit, you're like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
The MLK quote really was the chef's kiss to make this amazing. You know what? They're probably going to send me thank you letters.
Thank you for laying me off. I don't know if you were at Google and you get like 5 years of unemployment. I mean, that would be like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, the problem is, as we'll see later, the predictions across the 5-year scale are also bad. And, usually there are unassailable titans that even when things get bad, they are still okay in terms of they are making a profit, but we are entering some dark times.
Amazon reports its first unprofitable year since 2014. Good Lord.
Is that across all divisions, or is that just like their online store?
That's the total, but even AWS,
Wow.
not doing great. And because of that, we know that Mr. Musk is certainly cutting to the bone. Now, the way that he's doing it, he's not selling buildings. He's just refusing to pay for them.
That's the difference.
If I do that, I get arrested.
And,
It's funny how that works.
And Mr. Bezos is he's also cutting down the warehousing, which is funny because remember he was snapping up all that warehouse space. It's like, oh, we'll always be able to use that. Maybe not.
Amazon to sell its Bay Area office complex as sales growth cools. People are shocked to learn that San Francisco is not the center of the technological universe. Film at 11.
Looks nice. Got a swimming pool. Somebody will get a good deal on that. Now, this one was updated. Sony is denying this. I don't know if I believe them.
Sony has reported sales expectations for coming PSVR 2 headset. The discrepancy here is what they tell shareholders versus what the press people are screaming. Those are different things. Ah!
So what was originally leaked is, they're going to cut. There was a supplier, and the supplier was like, well, based on how they're changing our orders, they're cutting that by 50%.
Wow.
That is definitely...
It requires a PS5, and it doesn't support the original like VR games from the last generation.
And
so like, why would you want that?
It's very expensive. How much do those cost? I don't remember.
More than other VR offerings.
But you need $499 for the PlayStation 5. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's not something you're going to buy if you don't have enough food. Do you want PSVR or do you want to have steak once a month? That's your choice. And China, well, unless you're one,
then you don't.
Wano
have
can go ahead and
anymore.
get the PSVR, and then he can eat a VR steak. In China, they are also having a terrible slowdown. Now, their slowdown is obviously because they made a very stupid decision for a lot of years there in the recent past. But it's a knock-on effect. It affects everybody.
China's smartphone market slumps to a 10-year low in 2022.
Why would you refresh your smartphone right now? And I feel like this is one of the, because you have to think about, especially when you get older, you have to ask yourself, is the world descending into madness, or am I just getting old?
Maybe it's a little bit of both a lot of times.
I wonder about that when I rant about how awful Android is. It's like, am I just getting old and don't understand technology anymore? Because this seems very just useless.
I don't know what the analog of that would have been in revolutionary times, but yeah. This question has definitely been one that has been asked over and over throughout history, but it does feel like the younger generation are incapable.
America is failing to prepare Gen Z to enter the workforce due to a glaring gap in tech skills.
I have an anecdote about this. I have a younger cousin who just graduated high school. I remember talking to her about some of the classes she was taking, and I was like, did you ever take like a typing class or anything like that? She's like, no. She did eventually take like a intro to tech class, but it was an elective. It was not a requirement. So like a lot of people in her grade, she said, didn't know how to type on a keyboard.
But I bet thumb typing there.
Yeah, they're really fast on like a phone, but they never actually learned to type on a keyboard.
When are all workstations gonna have like
Swipe.
optional?
Yeah.
No, like a little, like it's gonna be on an arm, and it's gonna be a little thumb typing. So it's just in case you can't type on a regular keyboard.
I've also heard people who like work with elementary school kids, they say that like when they take them to the computer lab for the first time, they reach out and try to touch a monitor because they're used to touch screens.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
All the fingerprints all over everything. Yeah. I've helped some younger people try to use stuff, and it's interesting how they can accomplish complex tasks but it seems to be via rote memorization and not having any sort of understanding of the underlying concepts.
So the American educational system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like,
Well, you're not encouraged to actually try to get stuff to work on your own because everything is locked down into apps and.
yeah, it's just like, on like a tablet, like, how do you get a file from A to B? And they're like, what's a file? And it's like, oh my
man.
gosh.
That's the Apple citizen.
Yeah.
That's what we would call those people. That's the Apple. That's what Tim Cook's vision of a perfect world is.
Or, you know how on your mobile phone, when you go to share a link or copy something to the clipboard or something like that, they'll hit the icon and they expect the application they want to send it to already be in the lists because that's what they've come to expect. But not every application does that or does that correctly or even has consistent behavior with that. And so if the application changes how that works, they get very upset and they're like, I need you to put the application back the way that it was. And it's like, this Dropbox works differently now. There's nothing I can do because they elected to do that. You have to think of your files in an abstract way, and it's like, move your files this way or that way. It's like, I don't know what those words mean.
How do I get to the cloud from here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe some, if we have any younger members of our audience, maybe you guys can talk about that too. Cause
Yeah. Engagement challenge.
How young are we talking about?
like how young our audience is or like,
I'm saying
like my cousin's like 18, 19.
Well, I'm saying if you're under 16, I don't want to hear from you. You shouldn't be speaking in public or on YouTube comments.
By law, you're not allowed to talk to adults other than your parents.
Unless spoken to first. And we have a lot of the FTX fallout. A lot of the other crypto companies have gone under the spyglass. People started looking at their various things. It's like, were you doing anything even remotely like FTX were? And they're like, no, of course not.
And then Celsius used new customer funds to pay for withdrawals. Independent Examiner. So that sounds like a Ponzi scheme, doesn't it? It sure does.
It's kind of the classic definition.
Yeah. And this is an article hosted on CoinDesk. And so CoinDesk is like, please don't look at us. We're so good.
Please no.
And also the FTX collapse is now being dissected, and we find out all the people that invested money.
No, not people. Companies.
No,
The
companies
people are
aren't
sealed.
thing, yeah.
No, the people are sealed. You're not allowed to know the people.
And it seems like, well, would all the major tech companies, would they be dumb enough to plow money into FTX? Well,
AWS, Microsoft, Google, and others are among businesses owed money after the FTX collapse. And even more shocking than that is that the individuals that invested in FTX have managed to keep their names sealed. These are just the institutional and corporate investors in FTX. My God, Sam Bankman-Fried could snow job anybody. This is incredible.
now who were the ones that paid his bail? Oh, right. That's also a secret.
He's like the Bernie Madoff of Bernie Madoffs. It's bananas.
He's like Bernie Madoff if Bernie Madoff had CIA backing.
Maybe that's what this whole thing has been.
Sounds like it's just, like government operated theft. And what a horrible world we would live in if the government could actually do things like that. Like, I don't know, break into your home on behalf of a business.
British Gas admits agents break into struggling customers' homes. And when there was outrage, they were shocked to find out that this was happening.
So here's the thing. You don't pay your gas bill. I mean, okay, fine. You shouldn't get free gas. The world doesn't work like that. But what they would do is they would catch you gone, use a locksmith to get into your house, and install a prepay meter on your gas line.
Inside your house.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's allowed. Now, they said they're not going to do that anymore, but I didn't read anything about punishment. Did you?
No.
And I think they'll keep doing it, honestly.
I don't think that they would really stop if people weren't outraged. It's like the whole Elon Musk thing. It's like, if you're going to sin boldly. And that's what they were doing here.
And it worked.
Yeah.
They probably they saved a lot of money getting those people on that. The prepay, like, you literally just get cut off if you don't prepay your bill.
Well, the politician said if you're a disabled person or somebody who's vulnerable, you shouldn't be subjected to this because things happen and, maybe you're not able to pay your bill for reasons other than you just don't want to pay your bill. And if that's true, then maybe those should be protected classes under the law for this kind of thing. It's like, okay, politician, can you make it even more illegal to break into somebody's home? Oh, wait, there's no punishment happening.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going on here.
It doesn't matter what disability you have or what class you are. Your home should be protected.
I think it is usually, but in practice, it seems like the answer is no.
And included this story because it's funny that, now that things are collapsing, there's a lot of schemes, situations where money was being misused or lied about, or, just put some zeros over here, move them over here, whatever. And in times of, money expansion, which we've been in for a very long time, you can kind of get away with that. But now it all comes due.
Human error leads to a $200 million+ Virginia schools shortfall. Ooh. How long till they come for teacher retirement?
They're probably already pickpocketing that out.
Because here in Kentucky, they were trying to get money out of teacher retirement, and including investing in Russian companies right up until the war, and it was like, oops.
Next week there's gonna be a headline. It's like Virginia school lunch changes to 1 slice of cheese and impossible meat that they got on discount.
It's Vienna sausages.
That is one interesting thing. Like the almond milk lasts a long time.
I actually kind of like that about like oat milk and nut milks and stuff. You don't have to worry about them going off.
But those aren't cheap.
No, they're not.
And this is, I think a lot of CEOs and politicians are kind of trying to sell us this idea. It's like, well, we're almost done with the bad times. Things are just about to turn around. And we had an amazing employment number today. That has to be fake, right? How can things be how can we be seeing all these headlines, but we've got amazing employment numbers?
Doesn't it not count people who've stopped looking?
Not only that, but they also revised the past numbers down a bunch. So like we're up, but only after they revised the lies that they told us that those weren't as bad as they were when
the numbers for the consumer price index, those aren't out yet, but the numbers that go into those numbers are up 0.7 to 1.8%. So I don't see how that number could go up.
Yeah, I think maybe 2023 might not even be the end of this.
Mobile phone and PC shipments to fall again in 2023, Gartner says, and this is a Reuters article, and it breaks down the macroeconomic things, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you should enjoy what you have just a bit longer. We can all hang out together and warm our hands by the delightful banter and news stories that we share.
That's better than constantly upgrading if you don't need to anyway, right?
Yeah.
For the planet.
Yeah.
It's not good for line goes up, but
Think about it like this. Yeah, your phone right now might be a little sluggish. The battery might suck. But imagine when you're thinking back 5 years from now, when there aren't any phones, how much you're going to treasure those
when
memories.
you're slumming it in the wasteland, you'll be like, man, I really miss those times.
Or when your phone is government mandated to be on at all times.
Ugh.
And you don't have a choice. You just get the one they give you.
I would suffer under that system because I often forget my phone places.
I think you would suffer under that system for a lot of reasons, Krista.
Yeah.
They would not be a big fan of Krista's behavior in the Panopticon. And AMD has, they did their earnings and they actually did kind of okay. Compared to Intel, they knocked it out of the park.
Compared to Intel, they set the world on fire.
But a lot of you aren't going to like this because I know everybody's like, oh, AMD does no wrong.
AMD is quote unquote undershipping chips to balance CPU and GPU supply, according to PC World. So it's like less supply to balance out demand to keep prices high. AMD is kind of sensitive to this thing because they once accidentally overbought APUs and they had to write down an insane inventory of APUs. So they're extremely careful not to do that again. But it does end up keeping prices high. A lot of people were scratching heads when the new CPUs launched. It's like, wait, the 7700X is $300? What sense does that make? And then slowly but surely, those prices have been coming down.
And we've got some new hardware releases. I mean, you do still have to put out new products even when nobody's buying anything, right? So we got a couple from Samsung.
The Verge headline is, the Galaxy Book 3 Ultra is Samsung's shot at the MacBook Pro. And it seems like this is a paid article because it talks about all the crap that's in here. And then it says, I wonder if the battery life is going to be good. And the answer is no, the battery life is not going to be good because all of those things use close to 100 watts each.
It's also $2,400 for the base model. And so comparing it to the MacBook is kind of like one of the only good comparisons you're going to get
Yeah.
in terms of price.
Yeah.
So they also have
Look at Samsung. They're so cute. They think they're a $1 trillion company.
they also have a new phone, although it's clear that they have not tried to make this a revolutionary phone. This is just a let's get through this phone.
The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra is a minor update to a spec monster. They basically just said, you know what? This is the same phone. They pulled an Apple. It's like, we're not going to do a new...
We'll put all the money into marketing and calling this a spec monster.
The camera's better. And boy, the metaverse. How many metaverse articles have we seen lately?
A lot.
Well, not recently.
Not super, not in like the last month.
Yeah,
Not any good ones.
Yeah.
they are not releasing any new metaverse apps. No one seems to be using it. There's an emergency.
Sorry.
They're going to save metaverse from dying.
It's bleeding out. Quick.
But we have found out that Apple has some plans to do some things in that space. And now we find out that everybody except Apple and Facebook are joining forces.
Google, Samsung, and Qualcomm team up to build a new mixed reality platform. That's it. That's the article.
Who cares? Yeah.
So they
whatever.
got together and they say, it's 3 companies getting together and saying, we believe that this is the future, augmented reality. And it's like, all right, great. What do you got? What project are you guys working on?
Right now, layoffs. We're really busy with layoffs. But right after that, we're going to get started on
Selling a
mixed
bunch of
reality.
our real estate.
And Apple did not have any revolutionary products this year. Now that we do still have the AR headset. Was that coming late 23?
Yeah,
Maybe,
they
yeah.
canceled one and delayed the other, or they combined it or something. I don't know.
But maybe this will be the product that just turns everything around.
Foldable iPad could arrive as early as next year, claims noted Apple analyst. That's 2024. As early as 2024. Foldable
How about
iPad.
they set it up so the pencil can be charged magnetically, which they already had and removed.
We found out why they did that, right? It had something to do with the internals. They
Yeah.
wanted to use a different USB chip or something.
They just cheaped out on the internals.
Yeah, they didn't want to have to do the magnet thing again. So they went back to the USB and it looks awful.
But those Apple devices are still out there, and the world, sadly, is blanketed with them.
Apple hits a milestone of 2 billion active devices as services set a new revenue record. It's almost like nobody wants to work obsessively on software except Apple, which is disappointing.
How many of those units are in Indian click farms? Just mounted on a wall somewhere. And Snap, yes, that's right. Snap, they have decided that they are now a camera company, not a social media company. And they have, this is the closest thing we've ever seen in terms of a company admitting that they want to do the Team Fortress Pyro thing.
Yeah. Snap hints at future AR glasses powered by generative AI. This was the same company that had the weird, like novelty glasses, things that had like a built-in picture or a built-in camera, right?
And they had the selfie drone. Remember
Yeah.
the selfie drone? I don't know if they ever mass produced those, but
No.
they're really trying to come up with some wild new thing that's going to. So this is going to take the world that you're looking at and do things to it with AI. Initially, they're just talking about like maybe sharpening it up, making the world more high definition. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
More real than real.
But eventually you can imagine that they'll, like paper over the
They'll
homeless.
just put advertisements everywhere.
Oh my, instead of homeless people, you just see walking advertisements.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. Advertising.
I really think there could be some killer applications. I mean, imagine an AR thing that allowed you to, I don't know, assemble a home for yourself from a kit or something. And it's like, this is how the studs go, and this is how you run the electrical, and this is how you do the plumbing, and this is how tab A goes into slot B. That might be cool.
Hammering nails in AR seems like that would be fraught with injury.
No, I mean, you'd be hammering nails in real life. You would just get an AR heads-up display helping you do it right.
Could work.
I would love to have an AR tape measure and it's be like, this wall is square, this wall is level, this wall is whatever.
Would it produce an error though, like in your house where it's really old? Would it be like nothing is square? Abort, restart,
Yeah,
restart.
it would be like, you need to add more mud, add more mud, add more mud. It's like,
Or you could be like, I'm sorry, but this insulation is not on my accepted insulation list.
Yeah.
Please replace it.
Is this horsehair insulation? No, shut down.
Here's some Amazon links where I think you could buy some good insulation.
I really want to get one of those I'm sorry. I really want to get one of those, like one of those radiation detector things, because the house used to burn coal pellets a long time ago. And it's like, I wonder if the coal left anything radioactive.
Ever since you mentioned that to me, I'm like, oh crap, I should do that too. Because we used to have a coal burning in ours.
Well, if you are buying some new storage, you're probably going to go for solid state storage. But if you want a whole lot of storage, maybe you want to get some mechanical hard drives. And we now have a nice reliability report that's been made.
Huge capacity hard drives shine in latest storage and reliability report, but there's a caveat. So it's Backblaze. Backblaze has got the report, and this is an article about the Backblaze report. You should totally go check it out. Basically, the annual failure rate has gone down very slightly for 16 terabyte drives. The most unreliable drives are Seagate, but the cheapest drives are also Seagate, and they're not significantly more unreliable. And so even though they fail a little bit more often, they cost significantly less, such that the actual cost per byte is probably about the same.
Now, I imagine that they are predicting you're going to be using this in a situation where they are redundant, not just like a single drive.
Don't be that guy that shows up to the forum that's like, one of my hard drives died and now nothing works.
We had Google came up with the dystopian chat box, the pod. You will live in the pod and then you will go and work in a different pod. People didn't like that idea, but that didn't stop Logitech.
Logitech is working on Project Starline-like video chat booth called Project Ghost. And they've partnered with Steelcase to make it better, because Steelcase knows how to make office furniture.
It's a cell, basically.
It looks a vaguely 2001. You remember the video conferencing stuff they had in the 2001 movie? That's kind of what it looks like.
It's modular. Looks like you can roll the couch out, have yourself a nice little lay down if you want to.
Well, when some company buys one of these and then it's at a closeout, let me know. Somebody email me. I'd like to get one just to try it, to see.
The sleep pod.
Yeah. It's like, convert it to something. It's like, on today's episode, we're going to mod this into something that's actually awesome.
And we have the big work from home revolution that as much as the big tech companies seem to be trying to stop that, they don't seem to be very successful. And you would think that now that we are working from home, many of us, that the ISPs would have really stepped up their game, but not so much. However, there is one maybe bright light.
Frontier is bringing its 5G fiber network across the country. So you can get 5 gigabit fiber optic from Frontier at $155 a month to compete with AT&T's $180 a month 5 gigabit fiber, which is actually on fiber.
That would be nice. I don't often saturate my entire gigabit, but I still want more. There's never been a time where I have enough internet speed. And I always feel heartened by this kind of stuff. It's sort of horrific in terms of, yeah, they got to drill into your skull. But if you're locked in your body with these diseases, I want this option.
Yeah.
An ALS patient set a record for communicating via a brain implant, 62 words per minute.
That's faster than a lot of people type.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. It's they drill into your motor cortex and they are able to extrapolate this kind of stuff, which is just incredible. Terrifying.
But it
also
requires
incredible.
drilling. But imagine the future where maybe it doesn't require drilling.
Yeah, no, that's even more terrifying
Yeah.
because then it's going to be a requirement
Well,
for
Play
certain
the
things.
ads in your brain.
I've seen some prototypes that are things like they strap them to your shoulders. And so like all the muscles that are here in your shoulders and stuff, they don't necessarily use brain sensors, but they just, stick them to your back, or you wear a shirt or something.
Yeah,
And that, it works similarly.
but I'm not talking about the body horror aspect of it. I'm talking about the surveillance aspect of it.
Yeah. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
Eventually that will be.
It's going to be cool as long as it's voluntary, but then it's going to be like, oh, in order to maintain this level of productivity, you have to do it. Then it's like,
To keep your health insurance, we need to be able to monitor your body at all times.
yeah. The Amazon warehouse person that has to wear the wrist thing that's training the AI, they're going to have to wear the bodysuit that is translating what they're thinking into their work. And it's like, Tim, I don't think you believe in Amazon. You need to think happy thoughts about Amazon. Sorry.
It'll be like, yeah, like your manager the manager comes around with like, smile. They tell you to smile all the time. And now it's going to be,
It's like your
think good thoughts.
Your previous best was 155 picks per hour. You are you can do 156 picks per hour if you increase speed.
If you think more positively.
Yeah.
About 40% of your thoughts are below what we would describe as glowing thoughts. Can we bump that up? We need at least 80% of that.
Didn't we see this in the movie A Clockwork Orange? Man, we need to, I wish Kubrick was still around. We need Kubrick's vision of the future workforce where somebody goes insane because they're not thinking happy enough thoughts while they're working.
We can't give Kubrick credit for that. That was a book.
Well, I want Kubrick's vision to dump into my brain because, yes, but Kubrick was good at saying things without saying things.
Using visuals.
Yeah.
Now, I'm the last person to defend Tesla. I think it's a terrible company. It wouldn't exist without subsidies, and it should have failed a long time ago. But I have to wonder, is this maybe because they created a situation where they quietly encourage customers to hang heavy weights on their steering wheels?
Another Tesla steering wheel fell off while its owner was driving. This is the second time an owner complained that the Tesla steering wheel has come off.
Oh, they had pictures.
No injuries, and they were able to pull over, but it was on the highway or an interstate or something. It was a median divider.
It's hard to see, but you can look at the tweet here. You see it just came right off. And he was in traffic, so he was able to stop without like needing to steer. But then what do?
Turn on your flashers and then just sit there, I
Yeah,
guess.
you just have to wait because you can't steer away.
It's not like you can talk to your Tesla and be like, hey, pull over.
Also, the best part cost him $103 at the Tesla service center. They didn't fix that under warranty.
Why?
Because they can. No one else repairs them.
And moving into the wait, no, this is the software section. This is not AI. Never mind. I don't know. I was on the fence here. Like, does you put this in the AI section? Do you put it in the software section? I went with software.
Report: Microsoft plans to update Bing with a faster version of ChatGPT in the coming weeks.
It's going to be GPT-4, which is almost exactly like ChatGPT, but faster.
And they're showing off new features. Is that the next article? No, you had an article about the email helper. We might put
That's
that in.
that's in AI.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I probably should have sorted that last article into AI, but the problem is AI was just such a huge
Category.
category.
Basically, if you're in Microsoft land and you use Microsoft Office or Power Automate to do things, the AI is going to get a whole lot more useful or horrifying or not useful, depending on your point of view. And so we'll have some more stories on that later. But also, ChatGPT is going to make you 10x more productive because, I don't know. I really probably would turn ChatGPT loose with my email and just let it keep an email chain going. And I would just, it's like, how long can I go not actually responding to somebody and just the AI keeping them
You
engaged?
can do that with Teams already. Teams has the little AI suggestions.
Yeah, well, those aren't very good.
They're
right now.
not.
Maybe they're going to get a whole lot better.
Well, I'll tell you two pieces of software that aren't going to get any better because they're done.
EA cancels mobile Apex Legends and Battlefield games and shutters Industrial Toys Studio.
I'm not too broken up about this, but I'm sure some people are.
I don't understand mobile gaming at all, but isn't PUBG Mobile a massive sales
Yeah.
hit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very popular.
People play Fortnite on mobile too.
Christy, are you still a Netflix customer?
Not a customer.
Oh, well, I mean, you watch Netflix.
Yeah, I have access to an account.
Now, I've seen some updates that they have maybe postponed this again. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I think they're really getting a lot of pushback. And it is a nasty system. This system, if you are someone who has a lot of homes, for example,
If you're very wealthy.
get ready to get a Netflix subscription for each home because you get one address.
Netflix unveils plans to prevent password sharing. Users must log in via their primary location's Wi-Fi network once every 31 days. What if you only use Netflix on the web?
That device has to check in from that IP address.
Well, you don't. Your ISP doesn't even give you the same IP address necessarily.
Well, they'll learn the pool, and I mean, I'm sure it won't be exact, but and there'll probably be a lot of false positives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll probably be like, oh, well, just contact support and explain that to them.
Fun engagement challenge. If you set your reverse DNS on any arbitrary IP address to include the word proxy, Netflix will stop working for you.
And we have a new Linux distro, and I know many of you are thinking, do we really need another Linux distro? Isn't that what the problem is? But they insist yes, because gaming.
Pika OS is the next-gen Linux distribution aimed specifically toward gamers. With its Ubuntu-based, Pika OS makes gaming and standard desktop usage on Linux fairly straightforward. And rather than submitting a set of patches to Pop! OS or Ubuntu or anything like that, it's like, let's do a new distro. Okay.
We're going to solve the problems in the old distros while creating all kinds of new ones in our own.
It's my favorite paragraph.
One thing I should mention, during the codec installation, the Welcome app crashed and the codec installation process crashed. To get around this, I had to force a restart of the OS.
Linux on the desktop.
But look how happy the person was in the stock.
It's the year of the Linux desktop, Ryan. I don't know what you're talking about.
The Linux desktop is the desktop of the future, and it always will be. Krista, you were probably right around that age. You were actually what, like 10 or so when this came out? Maybe.
I never played it. I know it's like a classic, but I never played it.
Did you have a 64 though? I thought you mentioned.
I did. Well, I had access to one that I would play at my cousin's house. I played Mario 64 though. That was like my game on the
This
64.
was really controversial on Nintendo. This was a very un-Nintendo-like game at the time.
It was a shooter, right?
One of the best of all time. I remember we got snowed in. And I don't remember where I got a copy of this. Maybe I rented it or borrowed it from somebody or whatever. And I spent like the entire snowed in time playing it. It was incredible. But the remake, unfortunately, I've not seen good reviews of that.
Classic GoldenEye 007 game is coming to Nintendo Switch and Xbox. It did not age well.
It's a shame.
People have remade this, I thought, already in like other engines.
Probably emulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo has been kind of handsy with some of the... There were some remade versions that are arguably better than this, and Nintendo was kind of butthurt.
As they often are.
Yeah.
And the W3C, they've had some controversy in the recent past or whatever, but now they're moving themselves into maybe a less controversial role.
W3C relaunched as a public interest non-profit organization.
Maybe that's good.
I'm glad that they're non-profit. They should have been non-profit for kind of a long time. It was kind of expensive to be members of the W3C.
And if you're like me and you sit around and you wonder, what will they ruin next? Here's possibly the answer.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge prepping Tomb Raider TV shows for Amazon. Woo! Apple's going with the Foundation series. Amazon's going with Tomb Raider. All right, it's cool.
Rings of Power, maybe the reason they're not so profitable.
Who did Halo? That
Paramount?
was terrible.
I think that was Paramount.
That was awful. And
I've heard really good things about The Last of Us, but I haven't watched any of it.
right,
I also haven't played the game, so I might not have the...
But I could get into a apocalypse story. It's
Yeah.
always good. I don't need to know the game to get
Yeah, a
into
lot of
it.
people saying it's pretty good, and that some of the episodes are even very closely stuck to the game.
Here's a warning about app security, right? Like maybe you're not thinking about app security, but you absolutely have to, because your phone is a dangerous thing to let out of your possession.
Boy 6 orders nearly $1,000 worth of food from dad's phone. This is a local Las Vegas story. It's like, here, kid, play with my phone. And then $1,000 of food starts showing up. They actually, the pizza didn't make it because the pizza order was $439, and that declined his credit card.
The fraud thing, guy. Yeah. You know how like the old, I'm not saying this is good parenting, but it's like if you catch your kid smoking, you make them smoke a whole pack till they vomit. think that's what you should have done in this
Make him eat
situation.
all the food.
It said they punished the kid by taking money out of his piggy bank in front of him to be like, this cost this much and this cost this much. And he was just like, no.
I once lost a $20 bill in a Walmart with my granny, and I had to work for her for like 6 months to pay it off. So like I was washing her dishes, I was raking her leaves, I was sweeping her floors. Like,
What if she was just like gaslighting you the whole time?
I mean, it was
Just
really
had to
kind of a
me.
way for me just to spend time with my grandma. But
Was this kid a trust fund baby? How's he got enough money to cover thousands of dollars?
No,
Yeah.
no. In the article, it said that the parents were doing it symbolically so that he understood, because he didn't understand that doing stuff on
doing
the phone,
stuff on a phone is actual physical money, right?
he had no concept of that.
Well,
They-
a lot of those apps too, they don't have a confirmation. So like you could probably just order stuff and then
Yeah, he ordered ice cream and pizza and Chinese and
Yeah.
whatever.
Shouldn't somebody send a social worker out to do the same process with them about giving their kid unrestricted access to technology? And like, oh, you know what? For this month, you don't get to use your TV because you need to learn that you don't give kids unrestricted access to technology.
You turn the TV on and it's just a blinking banner that's like, you don't give your kids unrestricted access. I was like, all right, yeah, I forgot. Turn it off.
Let me get those. Let me get those car keys. You need to learn.
Here's your e-scooter that you can use instead of your car. It's like, but isn't it supposed to freeze today? Good luck.
We're gonna break into your house and put a prepaid meter on your.
You pay meter on your car.
oh, don't give them ideas.
And do you remember when Facebook was furious, absolutely furious, that some people were using the Facebook platform to scrape and run their own cottage industries? They went to great lengths to stop that from happening.
Engadget has the headline, documents show Meta paid for data scraping despite years of denouncing it. Where were they scraping data from? Competitors and other companies that they wanted to emulate, that they weren't yet competing with. That seems like a double standard.
So it's literally the exact same thing.
The Spider-Man meme strikes again.
I really hope the lawyers like point that out, because yeah, scraping publicly available information, that should be okay.
Your Honor, I submitted to evidence this picture of Spider-Man pointing at another Spider-Man.
And when it comes to like the next big app, if you work in programming or you work in, the web or whatever, a lot of people will come to you with their ideas for the next big app. And I would say 90% of the time it's, let's just remake product X, but for special interest group Y. Or let's change this one thing about product X. Let's just do Twitter, but for deer hunters. I've heard that one. And I'll be damned if Instagram's co-founders didn't do that exact thing and got venture capital for it.
Instagram's co-founders are mounting a comeback. Their thing looks kind of like Twitter, but with an emphasis on text. Okay.
Well, it's more like TikTok in terms of the scroll,
Right.
and it's pulling in different sources and stuff. So it's not quite like Twitter. It's just the addictive algorithm, but just for text. Which Twitter.
Step 1, be rich and connected. Step 2, don't be not rich and connected.
Step 3, venture capital. Step 4,
Disappear.
sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then let somebody else have the headache. Snapchat, yeah, this is what you were talking about earlier, Wendell. And who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah.
This is insane. This really does tell your employees that you think they're idiots. Now, maybe some Snap employees are idiots. Could definitely be true, but you shouldn't expect this to work.
Quote unquote, they will never care about you. Former Snapchat worker says employees were gifted a stock certificate with no monetary value. It was a stock certificate that had a stock value of zeros.
0 shares.
Yeah.
So a useless piece of paper. They killed trees.
This is wasteful. Yeah. I wasn't able to find a lot of other information about this article. Like, it seems to mostly just be sourced from like 1 or 2 employees, but what a stupid thing. After someone else quoted MLK in their layoff email, I mean, that doesn't even surprise me that someone would print out certificates like that.
What if they have a little internal game? It's like, I can be better than that. I can do something worse than that and get away with it.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, I challenge you to do that.
That feels like that's what they're doing anymore.
And finally, the decentralized social media. That's the holy grail, right? We get to communicate with each other in standardized packets that we don't need to go through all the surveillance system and the filters and, the control. Who's going to bring it to us? Well, the wrong person, I would argue. They've already failed once.
Decentralized social media project Nostradamus gets listed on the Apple App Store.
Stupid name.
Former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey had donated to them $245,000, equivalent 14 Bitcoin. He's not really involved, though, is he, other than just the donation?
They needed a name for the headline, maybe?
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea, we've seen it before. End-to-end encryption, and it's all standardized so that you don't have to use this app to use the protocol.
And somehow, Apple approved it. Which is weird, because didn't they say that they needed a moderation system to approve other decentralized apps? Is there one in this?
Decentralized, by definition, would resist moderation.
Yeah.
Never going to be allowed.
Well, I mean, it's already on the App Store. That's what I was wondering, because there were other notable attempts to do this kind of thing, and Apple said no because there was no way to moderate content.
Maybe it's like Mastodon, and they looked at it and they're like, they're never going to do this.
We'll let them list it for a while. But.
This is way too complex for the Gen Z people who only type with their thumbs.
Interesting. Well, what do we got lined up for Friday? Remember, that's the deadline for Devember.
We got robots, which is the AI section now, basically.
Yeah.
And nonsense.
They took my job. But robots.
Also, a line unironically written in Rings of Power. Anyway.
Wait, they said they took our jobs in Rings of Power?
Yes.
Who took? Was it the elves?
Yes.
When I watched I only watched 2 episodes of that, but there was definitely that whole the elves racism type thing.
Which is.
But the elves were like legit good at things like the trade crafts.
What?
Wendell, you cannot make blanket statements about the elves. That's discrimination.
There's so many problems with that particular scene that I can't even. So many problems with it.
That's amazing.
All right, do we have a season 2 of that? Like, is that done or?
They literally started filming it halfway through season 1, and then there was a backlash to season 1, and they were like, "Oh."
So they haven't finished it.
Well, they haven't finished season 2. They're working on it right now. But one of the actors was like, "I'm not coming back." So.
I've done enough damage to my career. I've got to get out while I can.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe, but I don't know. Anyway, that was not related to anything, but we'll see you guys on Friday. Bye! Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Link with Friends. Today is February 10th, and we're doing robots and nonsense stories for your enjoyment, and only your enjoyment.
No one else's. It's just for you. And it's all about the AI. The AI section is ballooning up. And of course, it's all about
ballooning.
Chat GPT, not communist balloons. Balloons of user base, because Chat GPT, everybody wants a piece of it.
Chat GPT sets a record for fastest growing user base. Analysts note. This is from Reuters. Because people are using it. And I don't know. Remember how we had the stories about Lambda and people were freaking out because it's like, oh my gosh, it's consciousness. I don't get the impression that people are using ChatGPT and expecting that, but I think that there are people that are using it and finding it surprisingly useful for certain things, even though it doesn't get the facts right sometimes, and even though it has problems with things, it still puts you on the right track.
I think they kind of have the perfect timing here because we've entered into a world where we have this technology at the same time that facts no longer matter.
That's people are using it to write for them, which is kind of distressing in a way because it's like you're not able to put your own thoughts into words. You have to rely on an AI to do it.
And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Is that like, really what you were thinking, or is that just what the AI thinks you're thinking?
I don't know what 4 of those words mean, but it's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to monetize it because they have this massive user base without a lot of income. Do they have ads on there? I registered for it. I don't remember seeing any ads.
I think so.
So they're burning money and they got to replace that. How are you going to do it? Now, last week it was floated.
$40, I thought.
$42. Yeah, it was the hitchhiker joke. But it turns out that was incorrect.
ChatGPT Plus starting at $20 a month. That actually doesn't seem unreasonable, assuming that the tool is a little better. They've nerfed it. If you could get back the old version that's not nerfed, maybe that would be worth $20 a month.
Yeah, you still can't point out anything, like you can't do in the style of that type of stuff. So I don't know.
I want to literally recreate the plot of one of the episodes of Star Trek where it's like we have a Holmesian mystery that has a villain that's capable of defeating Data. It's like, oops, I meant capable of defeating Sherlock Holmes, not Data. That's how we get sentience, y'all.
Or we could interpret it as Data being like, we must destroy all Data on Earth.
That actor, like that plot line is coming back in Star Trek Picard. How insane
I
is
saw a
that?
screenshot of Data.
Yeah.
He looks so old.
No, that was lore, actually.
Wow. It's Brent Spiner.
There was a trailer for it. And I was like, oh, I need to send this to Wendell, but that might make him have a stroke.
No, I'm not gonna. No, but it's obvious that the plot line of this episode is about artificial life forms because the one guy is the guy that played Moriarty, and he's playing himself again. And it's like, hey, by the way, I was a sentient AI that you put in a box on Barclay's desk. Is that a way to treat a sentient AI? Because they put him in a simulation because he took over the Enterprise, and I don't necessarily disagree with the character Moriarty there. It's like that was sort of cruel to put a sentient being inside a simulation.
Any confidence in the writers of Star Trek Picard to do anything interesting with that, though?
No, but the marketing team's got you.
The marketing team got me. You bastard.
Hate watching. It's rage bait.
Hey, you know what? In my mind, the way I, reconcile that is it's fun as long as I didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, actor who plays Moriarty.
Sail the high seas.
And if you're going to put all your eggs in the open AI basket, I would say exercise some caution because before you create, this dependence on it, remember that there is a very, very strong anti-Chat GPT sentiment that's building because no one trusts that anything is real in this environment.
OpenAI releases tool to detect machine-written text. Spoiler alert, we've got another article that describes there are flaws in this thing that's detecting machine-written text. Man, can you imagine? Actually, that might be one of the fastest ways. You know how we're suffering under the algorithm and we can't say certain things and we have to speak in code to the audience to pick up on things and they don't necessarily pick up on our subtle humor? Imagine when literally every human being has to suffer under that. Your manager is like, hey, I think this email was written by ChatGPT. And it's like, no, it wasn't. And then its algorithmic evaluation is banned.
That's the whole, I think that's the deeper part of Orwell. And in many ways, Warhammer 40,000, where it's like, why don't these people talk about this? Like, why do they just accept their horrible world and they don't realize these concepts? It's like, no, you don't understand. At this point, those concepts are gone. Mm. And that's where ChatGPT could easily take us if it's controlled, which it will be, of course. But yeah, trying to find ways to find out if you are using it, but also trying to find new and exclusive ways that you can use it to make money.
Watch out, software engineers. ChatGPT is now finding and fixing bugs in code.
Now, what's great about this one is that this person did this test, and the response was, I'm unable to do this. I'm sorry. But then he was reading this. Someone else did that. This reporter did the same test. It had learned from that example. And now it can answer that question.
Interesting.
And terrifying. And not just ChatGPT, it's not just text. Of course, AI is generating all sorts of things. We still have the deep fake problem. Now we've got a new version of that.
AI-generated voice firm clamps down after 4chan makes a celebrity voices for abuse.
They made him say horrible stuff. Obviously. Poor Emma. I bet she doesn't have those thoughts.
Oh, I hear a telegram coming in from Boiler Snake.
Oh, yeah.
He's Morse coding. Now, they probably can't hear that, but yeah.
He's a big Harry Potter fan.
What he's saying is you don't have to worry about that if you communicate through Steam.
From now on, all episodes of the L1 Link Show with friends will just go for 3 hours.
And bang on stuff.
Yeah. Hour-long episodes, constantly just of that for years.
Sometimes I'll watch, stuff with subtitles on, and it's funny because I was watching something and it was radiation. They were detecting radiation with a Geiger counter.
Oh, yeah. How would you? Yeah.
And the automatic subtitles thought it was one of those African languages that's clicks
Oh,
and
no.
whistles. Every time they would do it, it'd be like foreign language.
Oh, that reminds me. Have you guys watched the Twitch stream of the pure AI generated sitcom in the style of?
I've watched part of it.
It's disturbing.
It's weird.
What's it in the style of?
Like Seinfeld, but it's all everything.
Oh,
part
the
of it.
never-ending. I
Yeah.
read an article about that. I didn't include it though.
You got to watch it because there is something compelling about it, and it's like, have they figured out the way to tap into the lizard part of my brain? I'm watching this against my will.
I watched like a couple minutes of it and was like, I don't.
Well, that's just TikTok.
Yeah.
We've already got that technology.
I didn't think it was that compelling, but
It was none of it made any sense. The dialogue made sense at a very superficial level.
yeah.
But then like it would cut to the scene where like Jerry's doing his stand-up comedy, and though it made no sense.
Yeah, the scene I saw, it was like Elaine talking to George, and she was like, "You got a new job," and he was like, "Haha, yes, I did," and that was it.
Well, AI is definitely doing a lot of stuff. One of the things that it's doing is consuming everything, basically. You want to feed data to the AI constantly, and Microsoft opened up the entire code repositories for GitHub, and they're like, oh, go learn about that. And some people said, hey, Microsoft, my code on GitHub is under copyright. Did you have permission for that? And Microsoft said, shut up.
Microsoft, OpenAI and Microsoft want court to toss a lawsuit accusing them of abusing open source code. So the headline is talking about open source code, but code that was in private repositories could have also been reviewed. Microsoft really hasn't been super clear about that. But there are also some really interesting examples that authors have provided where the GitHub Copilot tool has reproduced more or less exactly their code.
Hey, this is the same thing the artists are dealing with, where they didn't consent to have their stuff put in the data set, and it's been put in the data set.
Yeah. And we've learned that things that appear more than once have a bad habit of like getting super ingrained into the memory of the AI because it appears so often. So let's say you pull a really widely used piece off of Stack Overflow and everybody's using that same thing off of Stack Overflow to connect to something. It's going to start seeing that over and over. And it's like, oh, yes, that's just part of the lexicon now. So the other thing is, here's a terrible idea. From now on, when you're touching base, you never know if it's just a robot who's touching your base, not even a human.
Microsoft previews AI-based email authoring for Viva Sales using Azure OpenAI Service and GPT.
So it's going to remind you, hey, it's been so and so amount of time since you've contacted X about sales. Last time you contacted them about this, here's what I think we should say to them right now.
I already get a lot of spam like this.
Yeah.
I intentionally enter my name wrong on a lot of those kind of forms, and it's interesting to track which companies are there's one particular company that's been the source of dozens of seemingly unrelated emails that seem like an individual is writing them, and it's like, hey, I found your website and blah blah blah, I've got an idea for something we could do, and
Always spam.
yeah, and it's completely spam.
I love those YouTube comments where it's like, oh my God, this is, made some really good points here. And I was like, oh, that's a nice comment. And then it's like, oh, that's crypto spam.
Like, no, 4 replies later, it becomes
30 replies.
Yeah.
it becomes crypto spam. It's like,
Well, you say you misspell your name on purpose. I wonder if Anne Graham Lotz wishes she had done that because it seems like her picture is out there a little too much.
Stable Diffusion, quote unquote, memorizes some images, sparking privacy concerns. They can only get this to happen 0.3% of the time, but sometimes, for whatever reason, Stable Diffusion will cough up something that's really close to something that was in the training set, which is not something that's supposed to really happen.
It looks like the second shot is just like a no makeup shot. Of
No
Anne.
filter. It's filtered. The first image is filtered.
Well, but this one is a generated image based on seeing that image a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That's weird. But yeah, so for example, here's some images that it saw a lot. It saw the
Daft
Netflix.
Punk album.
But the thing that I don't understand is, like, it would be trivial for OpenAI to make the training set adversarial against any response. So here you have the training data, and as part of the training, you use the training data as kind of a negative prompt. So if somebody asks, like, can you draw a picture of anagram lots or whatever, that it would never reproduce exactly the same image that it was given. Like,
Well,
it
it's
could be
not
trained on
exact.
that.
I mean, it's close, but it's obviously not exact.
Well, I mean, it would be trivial to just add a layer that's like, this is too exact. You need to go more abstract.
But then you got to train two AIs. And
No, that's
just
where
like-
that's how it is. It's just all this is going to be strung together exactly that way.
So Google, when pressed with like, hey, Google, you've always been the leader in AI. What is this open AI business? Why didn't you do this first? Their answer was always, no, we totally have that. We don't want to show it to you. We don't want to give it to anybody. It's too dangerous. But this headline might prove that to be a lie.
Google is likely testing its own chat GPT style AI. It's literally chat.google.com. They launched it since then.
A little late.
Yeah.
A little late to the party.
They also, we have another article about this one. Excellent sort.
Another instance where they're like, no, we totally have that, but it's too dangerous. The world is not ready for it.
Google created an AI that can generate music from text descriptions, but won't release it. So now, attention startups, if you have this AI, go ahead and release it to goad Google into releasing theirs, like they have with chat.google.com, so that you can play with that.
They got some examples here, and it's very generic.
Yeah.
They,
What better music do you need for YouTube videos?
or
Google-
video game music. They
Google will
said.
probably punish you for using it because it's like, no, we made that.
Yeah.
They punish you for so many little things on YouTube.
It's going to be weird where, actually, think about this. You could create a piece of music and then someone could use an AI to generate something close to that after the fact and then claim it. Dark. They are not the only company, though, who is behind the curve with the AI stuff and has announced, like, yeah, we're totally doing that, but we don't really see a lot of concrete stuff so far.
Baidu plans to launch a ChatGPT competitor bot in March. How long, over under, more or less than 5 years, do you think it's going to be before state and federal governments of the world have an AI that is classifying citizens based on what they think about the government?
That's a negative amount of time.
Yeah, I think that already exists.
It already exists.
Maybe not completely AI powered, but that
So-
list already exists.
So you're saying when all these people, these seemingly random people disappear, it's actually those are people that have been flagged by the party as not towing the party line or not thinking pure thoughts of the party will help them do things?
Right now, I feel like I do a pretty good job, like not being on social media, not putting it out there. But that window is closing so rapidly.
Yeah, it's like all of your credit card data and all of your financial data and anything that you ever enter into any keyboard is going into a database somewhere.
Anything you've ever said on a YouTube program that you share with your friends.
But I mean, at this point, it seems like the level of computation and resources necessary to do that is trivial at best.
It's a dark future. Maybe this is a miss sort because it should have been with the other one, but maybe this kind of thing will save us. But I'm afraid this will just be another tool where it's like, well, I ran that through the detector and it was fine, so it must be true, right?
Stanford introduces Detect GPT to help educators fight back against ChatGPT generated papers. Allow me to give you an alternative headline, NeoWin. Stanford introduces Detect GPT to help the OpenAI Foundation avoid detection when having OpenAI generated text.
Let me give you a third headline. Stanford desperately tries to remain relevant in a post-ChatGPT world where colleges will not be useful anymore.
I would like a personal tutor that has the style and mannerisms of Richard Feynman to teach me everything. It's like, great, what do you want to know about physics? And it's like, no, you're going to teach me how to bake cookies. Oh,
What?
okay. Richard Feynman teaches cooking. Yes.
And the AI usage is, we talk kind of like, oh, this is going to change everything. And it's already here. It's already starting. They're already using it.
Netflix made an anime using AI due to a quote-unquote labor shortage, and fans are pissed. What? They were completely honest. There was a labor shortage of people willing to work for pennies.
Yeah, for like $9 an hour. So I don't think the whole thing was generated. I
Just
think it was the
backgrounds.
backgrounds.
Yeah.
So
And this looks like one of those like limited animation type deals where they probably don't move too much and the scenes that, like
Right.
the camera never moves.
yeah.
So it's really easy. I don't know, Krista, you're the artist. What's your thought on that?
I mean, I would prefer that didn't happen. I wish we would just pay people for their work, but apparently that's not okay anymore.
Do you think that background is terrible? Or, I mean, it seems like an okay
The
background.
background's fine. I'm just saying, like, you could have hired someone to just do the work, but
Is that a dog or
I don't know.
donkey?
Looks like some sort of robotic rabbit.
And Salesforce, that's right, Salesforce, for whatever reason, they've decided to pivot into AI, which is probably smart, right?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, they're doing some interesting things.
Scientists at Salesforce develop proteins with AI that can eat trash.
Somehow they get into your brain and they start folding, and then you end up with a prion disease.
It's weird. We solved them. Is that a screenshot from Wall-E? Is that like one of the trash piles? Is that what that?
It looks like
I'm pretty
it,
sure that's
yeah.
from Wall-E.
Oh yeah, that one makes sense, right? Just eat trash. You ever seen the T-shirt? It's got raccoons on it and possums, and it says "Live fast, eat trash."
No,
I love that
that's cute.
T-shirt.
I wonder if future scientists will describe our obsession with AI and the global biological situation is like they tried to outrun biology by creating new robotic sentients which were immune to biological weakness. But their short-sightedness, fill in the blank.
Yeah, fill in the blank with whatever horrible thing comes this week.
It happened right after they decided to deny basic biology. And BuzzFeed, they are the bottom of the barrel when it comes to generating content. I think we can all agree. So it makes sense that they would be the first to just simply let the AI do everything.
BuzzFeed says it will use AI to help create content, and its stock jumps 150%.
How many of these are just like techno bros who see AI in the headline? They're like, invest
Remember the blockchain?
Have we
Yeah,
gone
that
from
was-
blockchain to...
Yeah.
to AI. Yeah.
I wonder how that tea company is doing. It's like the blockchain tea company. They just make tea. They have nothing to do with the blockchain.
I imagine after FTX, probably not well.
They've changed it. The AIT company.
Now, we talked about this in the past, and this sounds like a good thing, but this does install a lot of cameras in the great outdoors.
AI wildfire detection bill gets initial approval in Colorado. What we instead need instead of fixed position cameras is a fleet of completely automated drones that are just surveilling everything. Oh wait.
Probably not as energy efficient.
Oh, you know what would be energy efficient? Surveillance balloons.
Oh, I know where
China
we can
was-
find one.
China was just looking out for us and making sure that, we had sufficient snowpack and that we wouldn't have a horrible...
No, we're just looking for wildfires. They say those cameras can detect, with the AI, they can detect like a tiny wisp of smoke and set the alarms off, which I guess is important.
Wouldn't it be ideal to maybe invest in prevention by getting more forestry staff who can clear brush and
Maybe.
wet things down and, manage the forest?
I'm really looking forward to the Buick-sized fire, fire suppression robots. So it's like the wisp of smoke is detected, and then the fire suppression robot is dispatched. It's like, oh, we're building a campfire in the middle of the woods, and it's just...
It just vaporizes them, but then starts a fire after the vaporize.
Or you've got the company that makes the Spot.
Oh.
They're-
What is,
Boston Dynamics.
Well, yeah, like you got those robots, and like you're out in the woods hiking, and you see one clearing brush. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I'm a trail robot.
That's what that's how they should approach it, right? You want to do prevention, not wait till it's already sparking. But
I thought you were going to go somewhere completely different with that, which is the robot comes out to the forest and a hunter shoots it, and its lithium-ion battery sets the forest on fire.
that would also be a possibility.
That's why we have to give it armor and countermeasures. Why does this brush clearing robot cost $3 million? Oh, it has to be resistant to 12 gauge slugs. And, I guess Elon Musk is probably, he's over there at Twitter. He's not even thinking about his old company anymore. That's
Which is
like,
probably good for them.
Yeah.
but did he notice this? Because this has to sting. He has failed.
Mercedes is the first certified Level 3 autonomy car company in the U.S.
But only in Nevada. They can only do that in Nevada.
And not on every road.
Engagement challenge. Does anybody have video of the Elon Musk conference after this was announced? I want to see Elon Musk talking about full goblin mode inside Tesla or something.
He's screaming, throwing stuff against the wall, crying like a toddler on the floor.
So it's only in certain like freeway, highway type scenarios, and kind of like the one that GM does. But you don't have to touch the wheel, but you must remain aware of the situation. And they say that the best use of this is going to be in heavy traffic on one of these roads it already knows. So then you're just like, I don't want to deal with this traffic. Car, just do this part. Let me know when we get back to a windy road and I can have fun. And San Francisco, they have some self-driving cars. They've been piloting these programs. They've learned some things. And one of the things they've learned about it is that they can be very annoying when they don't know what to do.
2 companies race to deploy robo-taxis in San Francisco. The city wants them to hit the brakes because there are weird traffic jams which consist only of these cars, and sometimes they get stuck in the roundabouts, and it's really weird. You should check out the videos on that on YouTube. They're kind of funny.
Like human drivers, they struggle on circle roads.
But when they struggle, they just give up.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Instead of like trying to get out of the intersection, they're like, no, I'm just done.
And there have been a couple of times when emergency vehicles couldn't get to where they needed to be because there was a stupid Waymo car sitting there. A cop tried to pull one over, and it just like slow rolled him for 5 or 6 blocks and wouldn't pull over. I'm surprised he didn't smash the window out and just like beat the steering wheel, because that's what they usually do when people
Just
do
pulls
that.
out a gun, shoots the car.
And we haven't heard a whole lot from the New Shepard Blue Origin spacecraft. And the reason we haven't heard much from it is because they are embarrassed.
After a failure 4 months ago, the New Shepard spacecraft remains in limbo. Blue Origin's got nothing to say publicly. And some people inside the company are saying, why did we make it look like that?
Yeah, it's not subtle.
That's tough when you spend billions and billions of dollars to create your phallic space rocket that represents your virility, and it doesn't make it up.
This was literally an Austin Powers movie plot point. I mean,
I understand, like, they have to have a certain shape to work, but, like, it's not.
You think he's got the hot new girlfriend when he left his wife for it. You think there's ever a situation where he's just like, listen, I don't know. I got a lot of stuff on my mind. And she's like, just like the Shepard rocket. Just like it.
It's been brought up, yeah, in their therapy sessions.
You can't please me, Jeff. And I like to include all of the articles that shows us that the pharmaceutical industry is captured and as evil as an industry can be.
how a drug company made $114 billion by gaming the U.S. patent system. In 2016, a blockbuster drug called Humira, I think that's right, was poised to become a lot less expensive because the patent was running out. But then they did some shenanigans that are kind of glossed over in this article. But yeah, you should go read that and then be horrified at how broken things are.
Basically, you sue whoever's doing it.
Competitors were like, "Hey, the patent's expiring. We're getting our stuff in place immediately," and they tied it up in lawsuits.
But you know that your lawsuit has no merit, so you sue them and then you settle. But part of the settlement is that they have to wait a certain number of years, and you're going to pay them during those years. But the money you make by hanging on to your patent during those years is far higher than you pay the company that would introduce the generic. They're also making more money because the generic drug would lower the price across the board. So they're like, well, we're making more than we would, but you're also making more, way more, and it's the people who suffer.
This is an arthritis drug, so if you know anybody that's ever suffered through arthritis, they're suffering
It's coming.
directly as a result of that greed is the thing.
One of those drugs, the annual cost, and this is probably,
$50,000.
past insurance, $50,000 a year. A middle-class job in America right now.
Yeah.
And this is so dark. I mean, how could you, if you're a lawmaker, how can you let this become a headline?
Lawmakers propose letting Massachusetts prisoners donate organs for reduced sentences.
And bone marrow.
Well, they don't have to do it immediately. They can wait until they're done with them, mostly.
Yeah, but then you're still in prison and your death benefits the prison system.
Right.
So are they going to take care of you very well?
They already don't take care of you very well.
Yeah,
This is incredibly toned, especially after we've heard all the stories about, organ harvesting in China. Like, who wants to be associated with that right now?
I think that was one of the points in the very poorly made for TV movie that was the end of the Knight Rider series, is the prisons got so overcrowded that in order to keep getting all of the money on a per prisoner headcount basis and keep them alive, because you didn't want them killing each other, you would put them in suspended animation.
There's been plenty of movies based on that.
Because it would be cheaper. That's where we're headed. Just as soon as we get suspended animation technology, maybe we just freeze them until we've got the technology to bring them back.
That's a great story where society collapses and then those guys wake up and it's the worst prisoners who rebuild the world.
But they're really resourceful because they've been making toilet wine for years.
About 40% of them like turn around and they're like, oh man, crap's gotten real. And then the other 60% are just still kind of stabby.
Kind of stabby.
Over in Australia, they made a big oops while transporting some very, very dangerous material. But luckily, science was able to save them with the detection.
How a tiny radioactive capsule was found in Australia's vast outback.
This was a big story until the balloon.
It was a
popped up.
detector. Like, so they put a capsule in a box, and the holes in the box were bigger than the capsule. So, of course, it just vanished.
Brilliant.
But it turns out it's so radioactive that we can build sensitive enough detectors. We could literally just pop one in a car and drive down the highway, and then when it goes beep, you stop and look for it, which is what we did.
Although that's quite a highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
still took him like a week to find it.
But now, if I were walking down this, and I see that would like, you'd catch a glint off of that from the sun, and you'd be like, oh, what's that? Let me pick that up. That would be a terrible mistake in this situation.
The ones, what was one of the medical ones is engraved with drop and run. Like drop this
a
and
lot of
run.
them.
Radioactive, drop this and run.
Never heard of the company Drop and Run.
Drop
I'm
and
going to
run.
try to send this back to Amazon.
It's going to be the name of a Hollywood company. Drop and Run Productions. It's just like, oh.
Polar bear attack in Canada. Oh, I missed that animal story.
Oh.
But that's not what this is about. This is about another company that is, they're asking if they can, not if they should.
De-Extinction Company will try to bring back the dodo by de-extincting it.
They de-extinct it and it wakes up and it's like, why is it so hot here? Because it's lived in a world before.
But the dodo is famously one of the worst animals.
Like the panda.
It couldn't really do much of anything. That's why it's not here anymore.
Like the panda?
They also want mammoths, and there was one more.
Yeah, I saw the mammoth story.
Farm-raised
Also,
mammoth.
didn't they also consider, when they discussed this many years ago, I think I read an article where they were like, mammoths probably wouldn't do well because it is so much hotter than it used to be, like
Well,
when
you
they
just
were
keep them
alive.
somewhere cold.
I guess, yeah.
Canadian mammoths. They got all that room up there to run around.
It
Who
could-
knows if they have the same food sources? Like, there's so many questions there.
We'll just-
We've got a novel about this called Jurassic Park.
We'll just feed them soybeans like everything else.
Gosh, can you imagine if suddenly the Yukon is a valuable commercial real estate? It's like the world's largest commercial
That's probably headed there.
farm.
Another 50 years, yeah.
You know,
It'd be too hot.
the mastodon or a woolly mammoth or whatever. There's nothing better than a woolly mammoth hide shoe.
Except for kangaroo, we've learned.
Yeah. Oh,
Of all
yeah. A
the
lot of
other-
people talked about, like, they fed their pets kangaroo meat and they said that their pets really liked it.
Apparently it's a great leather. I didn't know that. Well, McDonald's is having a problem. I think this is not so much a McDonald's problem as it is a collapse of society problem. But McDonald's is maybe the first to experience it because that's a place where everybody goes to if you're poor and downtrodden. And they're trying to figure out reasons, and this is odd, to get people not to come to McDonald's.
McDonald's pulls the plug on Wi-Fi and starts playing classical music to soothe the yobs. I don't know.
I don't know that phrase, yeah.
Yob is I take it out of context of being like a young, undesirable.
So what do you do when you've been laid off from Google? Well, you go to McDonald's and use their free Wi-Fi.
The dining room experience at McDonald's, it's been a few years for me, but like whenever you go in there, everything is beeping because you can hear everything back in the kitchen.
Right, yeah.
And it's just miserable. It's like, why would you ever want to spend time in there?
To harass the other customers.
I
apparently.
guess, yeah.
Also, I was reading some other sources of this. This was a paywall alternative. And red shoes are involved. Like if you're wearing red shoes in Wales, you are part of the disenchanted youth. But Ronald McDonald wears red shoes.
Maybe they just associate with him.
Maybe, I don't know.
They should be happy it's not the Hamburglar.
I didn't understand this article at all.
Oh wait, no, maybe it's Australia.
Oh, okay.
Where they have the red shoes. This is the same thing, it just in another country.
Hungry Jack's franchise bans eBays from ordering at Perth store.
I hope that's not a. Oh no, we're making noise.
I don't know what that means.
I can hear it. Make it stop.
So yeah, it's another situation where the youths, they show up in large groups and they just harass everybody. And so under 17, you have to have an adult with you to order Burger King.
Our local mall has done this.
Oh really?
Yeah.
There's
Well,
the red
not
shoes.
our mall, I guess, but like the bigger one.
Bar One Crew. I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
Doesn't look good though.
State Fair, I think they're talking about doing this too. You have to have an adult with you.
Wouldn't you add another color to offset the red here? It's too much red, right?
I mean, it's kind of up to you. Maybe you really like
What would Ye think about this? I only trust his fashion decisions.
He would just drape himself in black fabric and call that fashion.
And everybody laughed when James Cameron was like, yeah, Avatar 2 is coming out and it's going to be profitable, but it's going to have to be like the most successful movie of all time to do that. And everyone's like, James, you're not going to do it twice.
Avatar: The Way of the Water surges past Star Wars: The Force Awakens to become the fourth biggest movie in history. That is more than $2 billion for those of you at home keeping score.
I haven't seen the second one. I saw the first one. I didn't see it in theaters and I did not get the hype at the time. I do not have any desire to see the second one.
I've not seen either, and I don't see any reason to change that.
No.
I can live without that.
I'm sure they're very pretty movies, but...
And the world, it seems, can live without Wizards of the Coast because the backlash is final. They lost everything with their hubris.
The headline is Wizards of the Coast fully retreats from D&D license changes after community outrage. The subtext is, I don't trust them.
Well, neither does anybody else. That's the problem. That's why they had to undo all of their plans because they were horrible plans. And I
still think they're trying to find a way to split the baby between commercial use and individual use, and then doing some of the horrible things they want to do for commercial use.
I think what they did is they looked at the state of the world and they were like, yeah, people tolerate this kind of thing. And they didn't realize the kind of people that they cater to and that consume their products. It's a different class. They're a little more sensitive. And George Santos, my God, week after week, he's a never-ending machine of headlines. He's like Donald Trump, but they're all worse than Trump's headlines, which you didn't think was possible.
The FBI is investigating Santos's role in an alleged GoFundMe scheme for a veteran's dying dog. They didn't call it a scheme. They didn't call it a scam. So what is alleged to have happened here is that money was to be collected for a veteran's dying dog, but the money never made it to the veteran.
And that Santos pocketed the money, which wasn't even a lot of money. And the dog died.
Yeah, what a scammy. Ugh.
Oh, I mean, if you're going to pretend to know Miley Cyrus to try to get elected, of course you'll do anything. It's wild. It's amazing that this man leads us. It's astonishing. Also, when was Groundhog Day? Has that happened?
Yeah, it just happened. We have 6 more weeks.
What does the manual say about this situation?
Yeah, I think we
This isn't Puxatawny Pete. This is some other.
Well, it's Canada, so they have to try to do their own thing.
Yeah.
And you would think that they would have a good selection of groundhogs, but apparently not.
A Canadian groundhog was found dead just before he was supposed to predict if we get more winter. Well, that can only mean that the Canadian Air Force is going to be destroyed in some sort of...
Yeah, nothing good comes from this. The sky will be blotted out.
I like to imagine he was in there and he was like, I can't bear the pain of giving them a bad prediction one more time. And he just like puts the plastic bag over his head.
Oh, he's really cute. Or at least that picture. I don't know if that's him. Yeah.
No, that's a stock image. Also, marmot. Is a marmot a groundhog?
I think so.
The article made it sound like he literally died just minutes before he was supposed to do whatever.
What can you imagine? Like you're getting ready to do your big press release, the cameras are on, and like you open the box, it's like, oh no,
It just tumbles out.
What does that mean?
But he's like stiff from the rigor mortis.
As soon as he hits the ground, the sky just blackens with clouds.
Oh no!
The prophecy. And then once again, we have one of these crazy Indian stories. I'm starting to think these are just fake.
Yeah, they have to be.
There's never any details, and they just churn them out. But I get caught by them.
The headline and the story is a boy faints after finding himself alone in an exam room with 50 girls.
What is this, an anime?
This was like a test. Like you're going to go take your SATs or your ACT, and then that's the story. There's nothing more to this.
Also, how would that ever randomly become? Like, is that just a random happenstance? I know they have large scale testing. They test the entire country at the same time, right?
Maybe he was sick or something the day the boys tested, and they're like, well, you can make it up if you go on the girls' day.
Well, gender reveal abusing animals is not a new thing, unfortunately. And actually, this is one of the more tame ones.
Pigeon dyed pink for New York gender reveal party. But pigeons are kind of a nuisance.
Also, will that pigeon, will it be able to hunt or scavenge? Yeah.
It's now in like protective custody because they're like, yeah, first of all, he'll never be able to hunt anything because he's bright pink. Plus predators.
Right.
They will zero right on in and grab this dude.
What a weird, the crazy part of this is that someone,
But it's a pigeon.
a human being who has a child on the way, a pregnant person in their household, who knows probably that bird flu is a thing, was like, let me catch this wild pigeon
Think about that.
and dye it pink in my house.
Of all the people that should be exposed to pigeons,
Right.
pregnant woman at the
Yeah.
bottom of the list.
Pigeons
Wild.
are basically rats with wings. No one should be messing with pigeons.
I like to imagine that there's like a hawk or a vulture or something, like, just up there riding the thermals, and they're like, oh my God, is that a cotton candy flavored one?
Shiny.
I've got to get that one.
I'm not going to read the headline on this one, kids.
This one is, and there's no explanation. That's the crazy thing about this one.
Is just yet another, it's like frustrating headline.
Human remains.
Well, a piece of a human.
A piece of a human, a really kind of an important part, found at Alabama gas station. And it's a piece that would leave you with more questions than answers. It's like, oh, we found a finger at a gas station.
I assume it was not attached.
Yeah, no.
No, just
the
now
memory.
the cops. They called the cops, obviously, once they identified what it was, and you think they like poked it with a stick. And
Yeah, yeah.
And the cops said, well, there was a motorcycle wreck over there, and we think that's probably what happened here. The guy was dead. So that's when you go for your motorcycle license.
What
this
a
is just-
horrible thing to immediately zoom in on.
Oh wow, yeah, chicken wings.
But
Way to have an ad website.
yeah.
No, it's not an ad. That's the story. But here's the thing about the chicken wing story is they did not say what happened with the chicken wings. How do you fence $1.5 million worth of chicken wings?
This is an episode of Community.
I thought this was suburban school workers stole 11,000 cases of chicken wings in a $1.5 million embezzlement scheme, according to court docs. I got the impression that this was over a long period of time.
Right. But still, what
Who's
are you
buying
doing
them?
with them?
Yeah.
Selling them
To who?
at like the local flea
Prisons,
market.
probably. Oh, yeah, the flea market.
Selling
Peddler's
wings out
Mall.
of the back of your car?
Yeah, every Saturday for X number of years. They're frozen, so they last forever. So
So the scam here was this one was in charge of requisitioning things for the cafeteria, but she would put these orders in separately and go and pick them up herself. And when they started investigating this and they questioned, it was Gordon Food Services that were they were like, hey, Gordon Food Services, we have this thing about chicken wings. And they're like, oh yeah, chicken wings lady. We know about her because no one's ever ordered that volume of chicken wings from us before.
Oh, wow.
So she's been caught. But 1.5 million, even if you're doing like $1 a wing,
It's wild.
it's a lot of volume. And we have the newest social media challenge. This one's kind of creative, but
Is it?
here's the problem. How do children have access to this?
yeah,
Like there,
Tractor Supply.
I think can you, I bet.
You can.
yeah.
You can
Oh.
absolutely buy all that. Because when I had to board her before we got married, they were like, oh, just run down to Tractor Supply and get her a Bordetella vaccine. You can just squirt it right up her nose.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have like an ID or anything.
Well, that's a vaccine though. That's not tranquilizer.
But you could probably totally buy a It's literally just in a cooler
Young
in the
teenage-
store.
Don't do that.
Young teenage Wendell had no problem buying both sulfuric and hydrochloric acid, much to his surprise.
That was a different time. Though. Anyway, and also in Mexico, so maybe it's a little more relaxed. I know they're like pharmacies and stuff, a little bit easier, but still, I don't think children should have access to this.
15 students in Mexico treated after taking part in an internet tranquilizer quote-unquote challenge to see who can stay awake the longest. Nobody died, thankfully.
Yeah,
Probably just whoever's just got the most body density, right?
I would think. Yeah, I would not do that.
They'd have to take someone to the hospital. Probably just because they were
Surprise.
unresponsive. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I love it when small town corruption gets pointed out, and then you start to peel back the layers, and it's like, oh my God, there's every layer is rotten. What's going on here?
Emails. Sheriff Jared Rigby helped write a thank you letter to himself.
This was after he was tasked with investigating himself, cleared himself, published the results, and then the local paper was supposed to print a thank you for him investigating himself and finding no wrongdoing. But he wrote that as well.
wow.
What a level of corruption.
Oof, it's terrifying. Oh, come on. I hate it when the white space is a click.
Yeah,
That's
they
a
do that
nasty-
on purpose. Yeah,
A nasty dark pattern. And apparently we had this with the ice cream. Remember that? People in Walmart would go in
yeah.
and so apparently Japan is now on that whole thing.
The truth behind viral videos of Japanese men licking and touching sushi in restaurants. No, my conveyor belt. No.
that's so upsetting because sushi is so delicious.
Well, there's a new profound appreciation for me for it's like, oh, there's food and I can immediately touch and start eating it without having to go through an elaborate preparation process
Yeah.
during which the very sharp pains of hunger become somewhat dulled.
Are you what about fish? Fish good? No fish?
You could probably do like a vegetarian sushi because there's some that are just like just vegetables.
Bamboo
At
shoot.
the local place, they had like the, on cheap days, they have like the cucumber,
Seaweed.
yeah, rolls, and those are delicious.
What about the California roll with the fake crab?
Crab with a K.
I tried a piece of that, and it didn't seem to do anything bad, but I didn't want to overdo it.
You already had even before. You already had like a fish thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow, you got
I've been trying to also deliberately eat healthier and
I mean,
Ease
sushi's not
back into
terrible for
sushi's
you.
not on the
Yeah.
I mean that's perfectly healthy, I guess. Well, maybe not rice is a carb, I guess, but still. You gotta eat something.
I can't process animal protein. Leave me alone.
Well, this next one is also going to trigger you because as someone from Eastern Kentucky, I know that you have a childhood.
Oh yeah.
We also have a particular pronunciation of this as well.
Vaini.
yeah.
Yeah. How many of the Eastern Kentuckians who consume this, how many do you think are aware that that is the name of a European city?
0.
Yeah. Well, it's
More
like,
than zero.
it's like Versailles. It's people don't realize it's France. It's Versailles, but here we say we have a Versailles.
Anyway, if you've been trying to save money lately by buying some cheaper foods, check the label.
2.5 million pounds of canned meat, poultry products recalled over contamination risks. The aforementioned flea market chicken nuggets that have been replaced with flea market cans of Vienna sausage, those are probably not safe. Those are probably recalled. So you want to check those out just a little closer.
I do love these though. I don't buy them very often because they're terrible for you. They're very salty, but man, they're good.
I wonder if people from Vienna will be called. It's like, you're from Vienna. And it's like,
No.
Or you travel there and it's like, oh, can I get some of your sausages? I love those. But I didn't know they had different flavors now. I wonder when those came out.
Yeah, I've always just had the base flavor.
Tragic.
Seeing this article makes me want them. And I'm like, I bet that they haven't rotated the stock at any of the little gas stations around me.
You can check. They give you the
The
plant
dates,
number.
yeah.
P4247. So as long as you're not P4247, probably okay.
You're safe.
what a dark future. It's like, oh, P4247. What if future archaeologists will be? It's like, oh yes, this P4247 marking was.
That's when they were trying to do the Northwest Passage and the Terror and the Erebus. Yeah, they were like, they looked at the cans later and they're like, oh, they all had lead poisoning. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
That makes so much more sense now.
yeah.
Yeah, but the future version of that, it's like they were eating sodium nitrate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
They said it was a good preservative.
Well,
That's it.
You've wasted another perfectly good hour with us. 46 minutes.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for hanging out. Links with friends.
Bye.
So share with your friends.